Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. This one is going to hurt to do because I like Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn is probably one of my favorite politicians. The man holds his shape like nobody else holds his shape. And, you know, I've taken the position that lefties need to hold their shape on this stuff. Otherwise, you can never necessarily be a bulwark against the right. So when they tried to accuse Jeremy Corbyn of, a perfect example, when the UK comes out and says that Russia poisoned a spy, Jeremy Corbyn comes out and makes the point of, well, we don't know that, and we need to hold the government accountable, seeing as the government of the UK said there were weapons of mass destruction. We can no longer take the word of the UK, especially when the consequences are so dramatic. Now, we're talking from that standpoint with just the European Union, I'm mangling this. We're talking from that standpoint, from the standpoint of Russia. When Bernie Sanders was hit with similar stuff, where they were trying to use this Russia nonsense in order to hit Bernie Sanders in the knees, Bernie Sanders, for all intents and purposes, repudiated the movement that was pushing him, making this point that, yeah, Russia did this, Russia did that, Russia was all over the place, there were Russians on the beds, there were Russians, Corbyn didn't do that. Corbyn didn't repudiate his movement. Corbyn stayed strong and held the government accountable. Corbyn did what Corbyn should have did. He was being a patriot, he was doing God's work, and I gave him all the credit in the world for it, even as they jeered him. When Corbyn stood up in Parliament, and Corbyn made this point, look, we don't know as a flat fact that Russia did it, and not only do we not know as a flat fact that Russia did it, we should not necessarily be pointing the finger without having the necessary evidence and without being knowing for sure that they did it. They jeered him, boo, in Parliament. It was an amazing thing. It took a magnificent amount of strength to stand there in the well of that dispatch box and tell them to go F themselves. For all intents and purposes, what he was doing was right. He was leader of the opposition, and as leader of the opposition, he was holding the government accountable. And you should not just assume that the Theresa May government is right. Why would you assume that in any other scenario? At which point have the Tories been the honest actors? Have they been honest actors when they've been saying how much money and all this other resources they've been putting into healthcare? You've literally had people out there dying in ambulances because they didn't have the proper funding for the NHS. But Theresa May will get into the dispatch box and say, we funded these guys and these guys are great and happy with the lack of funding that they are going, and they're awesome at their jobs. Yes, I imagine they're awesome at their jobs. I bet they will be more awesome at their jobs if they had the proper funding in order to actually do their jobs properly. But on this, I have to be honest. I have doubts and I have qualms, and I suspect it's because Jeremy Corbyn is in the leader of the opposition that he's not putting forward a plan of his own that's real and that's legitimate. And let me explain what I mean. The EU withdrawal bill came out today. Theresa May released a full list of proposed amendments. How the MPs vote on amendments could significantly shape how Brexit proceeds. Now, the Remain campaign has started a new strategy. Part of this is, what's the guy's name? The plutocrat billionaire that's not minding his own goddamn business and doesn't even live in Britain. I can't think of his name. But he's funding all of this. Soros. Putting millions of dollars into the thing of trying to get Labour to vote Remain. This is amazing. He doesn't even live in the country, and he's doing it. Now, here's the catch. The thing that some people in Labour, including the Blairites, have taken the position to make this argument of, hey, we understand we lost, and we're not saying that we're trying to get another vote again. What we're trying to get a vote on is the final bill. Now, on no other circumstance do you vote on each and every bit of legislation. The country voted to leave. Get on with it. The idea that you're going to have a secondary vote is nonsense. And all of this is just political strategy to try to get another vote, or at the very least to stave off actually going through Brexit. The other part to this, and mind you, their strategy for this part is, and you've seen it, it's become the typical talking point of people who are in the Remain all over the BBC, all over Sky News. Anytime you put a mic in front of a Blairite's face who's trying to remain, well, we understand that we lost. We get that part. And we're not trying to have a second vote. We're just trying to bring it up to a vote before we leave. That's all we're trying to do. Bring it up to a vote before we leave. Wouldn't you like to vote on the items? Each and every item? Wouldn't you like to vote on the items before we leave? I mean, when you want to do that? I mean, do you really feel comfortable with this government? I mean, this is the line of argument. Now, the effectiveness of the line of argument is this government is in shambles. You could wake up in the morning and the government have collapsed depending upon what Theresa May is going to do or not do. But they voted to leave. What if you have a second referendum and they vote no? Then what? Are you going to have a third? I mean, this gets to be nonsense. This gets to be utter nonsense. That's the first point. The second point is what Labour, under Jeremy Corbyn, is pushing for. That is somewhat of a nonsensical position, and yet they're pushing for the position nonetheless. Now, Theresa May has called Jeremy Corbyn on this, but this gets kind of glossed over because ultimately Theresa May is head of the government and Theresa May is the one that's going through the process. I'm putting this entire withdrawal bill here so you can read it for yourself, but they're giving you the positions that the amendment, and they're giving you the position of the government and Labour. Look at this amendment by Labour. This amendment is nonsensical. Labour amendment, access to the internal market. Okay, an intended replacement to the Amendment 51 on the EEA. It states that a negotiated objective should be to ensure the United Kingdom has full access to the internal market of the European Union, underpinned by shared institutions and regulations, with no new impediments to trade and common rights, standard and protections as a minimum. Proposed by the Labour front bench. The government opposes this. Now, this sounds good. You can imagine that the businesses and everything else is, yes, we want to keep access to the single market. The problem here is that the EU is going to dismiss this out of hand. And the Labour knows that the EU is going to dismiss this out of hand. Let's take a look at it. Ensure access to the internal market of the European Union underpinned by shared institutions, regulations, no new impediments to control the income. That's not Brexit. I'm sorry, that's not Brexit. That's not what the people voted on. That is the opposite of Brexit. That is you setting up your regulations with the European Union so closely that for all intents and purposes, there's no Brexit. You understand that the European Union is not going to allow you to have an a la carte. Meaning I can take a little bit of this, and I can take a little bit of this, and I like this, but I don't particularly like that. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. Part of the rejection of Theresa May was they were saying that she was trying to essentially have this unicorn way of going about the Brexit, that she could take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It doesn't work that way. There's a customs union, and there's a single market. Those things are different. The customs union deals with the regulations like the tariffs and so forth, meaning that all those things are going to be, for the most part, the same. If you're going into the EU, you're dealing with the European Union as... Sorry, I've been doing this all day, so I'm getting a little bit tired. But you're dealing with the European Union as a whole. You're not dealing with them as piecemeal. So one country can't undercut the amount to try to entice countries or entice businesses to come to that particular part. If you're going to deal with it, you're going to deal with it as a whole. They're smoothing over all of the regulations to deal with the European Union, almost as if it looks like trade for the United States. In that sense. Florida is not going to put tariffs. That's relegated to the federal government. It's something similar for the European Union, even though these are countries, not states. Single market is different. The single market depends on 4 freedoms. And this is where they're going to hit their heads. And just so I can read them out. I don't want to forget any. Right here. Single market rules require freedom of movement from the EU member country to another of goods, people, services, and capital, the so-called four freedoms. What that means is there is no way for labor to get this a la carte menu, without melding their laws to coincide with the European Union. And understand what that means. If the European Union, for example, they say no GMO foods. Well, all of the countries, for the most part, are going to have to abide by the rulings of the European Union. They manage their deals together. Their policies, for the most part, gets melded out together. So if you're not dealing with one individual country, you're dealing with all. The policies, for the most part, are under the jurisdiction of the European rules, of the single market rules. Meaning all of them are playing by the same rules. But also immigration, meaning the freedom of movement of people back and forth. There is not we like a little bit of single market, but we don't necessarily want the people coming into the country. Or we like a little bit of this, but we don't particularly like this. It's not a la carte. You can't pick and choose. That's going to be dismissed out of hand. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this even says it's being dismissed out of hand. Chance of success extremely slim. Tory rebels unlikely to back an official labor amendment, not least because what it proposes is more or less impossible under the EU rules. Not to mention, if you're trying to have full access to the internal market, shared institutions and regulations, with no impediments to trade and the common rights, standard and protect, how is that Brexit? Where's your own rules at that point? If you, as Britain, is mending and melding your rules and shaping your rules to essentially mix and match with the EU, how are you a singular item at that point? How are you a singular country? You, for all intents and purposes, are still in the same spot that you were in prior, with this other weird quirk that you may not even have access to the trade deals that these guys fly. So say, for example, if the European Union gets involved in some kind of trade deal, let's say TTIP. No, not TTIP. That may not be a good one. Let's say a new trade deal comes up. Let's say the European Union decides it wants to get involved in this trade deal for whatever reason because it thinks it's the bee's knees. What is Britain going to do? Britain is not going to have a seat at the table. Britain is not going to be able to have a say at this at all. Britain is going to, for the most part, either going to have to meld their trade regulations to match that of whatever the European Union comes up with, or be on the outs. They're not going to have a seat at the table from the standpoint of the trade deals because they're outside looking into the window. This is not me making an argument for Brexit, so don't misunderstand me, for or against Brexit. I'm more so making that the position that Jeremy Corbyn has on this is nonsensical. And I am somebody who actually likes Corbyn. And most of the things Corbyn say, I'm like, fucking yes! Jeremy Corbyn! Jeremy Corbyn! Jeremy Corbyn! That's me! That's me! That's me! I'm in the house. I'm the one screaming in the back with Jeremy Corbyn. That's me. And despite that being me, I look at this and say, this makes no sense. This makes no sense. Perhaps this is one of those situations where it's just easier to hit Theresa May and stay in the background and put something up that's nonsensical but that people like. Because if people look at it and say, hey, I kind of want to be still part of the single market, not necessarily realizing that what Jeremy Corbyn is proposing here can never come to pass. Can never come to pass. If he's going to hit Theresa May saying that she's going along with this kind of fantasy or the Narnia, what do they call it? The Narnia tactic or the Narnia plan. This is bad. This is a fantasy. I don't know what the real plan that Jeremy Corbyn has for something like this. I understand he says he wants a custom union. I understand he wants a single market. But as it is, this particular labor amendment is absurd. It's absurd. Now, I don't live in Britain, so maybe I am missing something in this. So if there is somebody here who does live in Britain and maybe can elucidate me on this, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. What I do know is I saw that and I was like, what the hell? Now, I don't have absolute knowledge of British policy, so maybe I'm missing something here. But I looked at this, and this made utterly no sense. This made utterly no sense. Let's see. Bad date on superdelegates, another introduction. Let's see. The order of chaos. Britain is an island. What happens if a key and locked nation pulls out of the EU? One where all traffic and trade goes through. I don't know. I mean, for that matter, what happens if Italy pulls out? Oh, fuck. What happens if Italy pulls out? I mean, they have a Eurosceptic government in Italy right now. The president has just repudiated the person who they wanted to be, if I'm not mistaken, the treasurer. And the argument that government was making was that France and Brussels and Germany already had too much influence over their political affairs. And the president had just literally, essentially made their point for him. If they have elections again in Italy, it's most likely not, based on the polling, that they would get more Eurosceptics in office, not less. Britain may not be the only country. Look, sometimes in chess, the things that you're trying to accomplish and what you do to accomplish those things sometimes have negative consequences on the wider plan and the wider goal. They brutally put down Greece. Brutally. Democracy in Greece. They said, they had a referendum. The country itself said no to Brussels. And what did they do? Germany, Angela Merkel, shut their banks down. Now, one of the dirty little secrets here is that Angela Merkel they scapegoated the Greeks, acting as if, oh, these poor, dirty, lazy Greeks, that we need to give them a loan, missing the point that it was German banks. It was almost, for all intents and purposes, a bailout to German banks. But they used this thing of Greece as a way of kind of sliding that through so Angela Merkel wouldn't have to say that she was given a bailout to French and German banks. They crushed the democratic process in Greece. And what I would tell you is there are people who looked at that, at least on the left, and their hair was lit on fire. And if they had any skepticism about the European Union, that lit it ablaze. Just in very act of them doing that, they were able to galvanize certain factions of the left. I don't know about the right on this. I know right was using immigration, but the left looked at this and says, oh my God, if we ever try to put through a left-wing plan, it will be crushed by Brussels and Germany. That's kind of besides the point. I'm just making this case. What Jeremy Corbyn is pushing here may be politically feasible, but in reality, it is not. It is not. Labour put an amendment pushing for soft Norway-style Brexit, basically. It's entirely appropriate, considered the vote was close. Look, the Norway-style thing, where is it? I just finished reading an article that said the Norway-style plan wouldn't apply. Meaning it wouldn't solve the issue dealing with the Northern Ireland border. Meaning a Norway-style plan will put a hard border between Northern Ireland and between the Republic of Ireland. It doesn't solve their issue. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It doesn't. Not to mention this idea of a Norway-style plan. What I just read here, if that's a Norway-style plan, you can't pick and choose. They're not going to let Britain pick and choose. Now, here's another thing. Political pressure based on Britain leaving. Now, if it was you, and you were part of the European Union, and you had Nigel Farage in the European Union going back like 6 years, screaming about leaving the European Union at the height of his lungs, and on the day that he get to leave after the Brexit vote, Nigel Farage is a strutting peacock and essentially threatens the European Union, saying that we can, don't spite your nose or cut your face or whatever. But in saying that, Nigel Farage understood something basic and straightforward. Europe holds all the cards. Europe can live without Britain, not the other way around. If there is going to be pain to be taken here, that pain is going to be taken through Britain, not through the European Union. The European Union can stand to live without Britain, not the other way around. Now, the question becomes, is the European Union going to make Britain suffer for leaving the European Union to try to dissuade other countries from doing the exact same thing? If Britain gets a good deal, what would be the incentive structure built for other countries that may not necessarily like the way things are going? And is it not in the interest of the European Union to make Britain suffer to some degree for leaving the European Union to dissuade other nations from doing the same? Just asking the question. Just asking the question. You're wrong, because the Remain perspective is growing in the UK. Think of the intractable border problem in Ireland. If hard Brexit happens, capital investment in the UK would dry up, not a friction border. So that part, you're right. Again, I've been reading all of this stuff talking about France and Germany trying to take Britain's financial markets, so London wouldn't necessarily be the home of capital. France and Britain would take those. I've been reading stories talking about businesses that are going to be adversely affected because the EU is telling people to not buy or find other sources of those products because Britain will no longer be part of the European Union. Britain is going to take a hit. I understand the utopians who believe that Britain can pull out of this without necessarily taking a major impact. I don't see it. I don't see it. Damn, I think Jamal is doing like Nico and talking about something he doesn't know enough about. Uh-oh. What am I missing, Pat? What am I missing? Explain what I'm missing. You can't say that without telling me what I'm missing. I think there's a real chance that Ireland and Scotland can use this kerfuffle with Brexit to rally for independence. Then all bets are off. The order of chaos. Why must everything done for tactical reasons? Can't it just be because it's the right thing to do? Order of chaos. I agree with you. Absolutely. Agreed. But do you believe that that's what they're doing? Do you believe that that's what they're doing? And Pat, you need to explain what I'm missing. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But explain what I'm missing. I even phrased it up as a question. In fact, fuck it. Call in. Yeah, call in. Make your point. Make your point. Step into the arena. Step into the arena. No, thank you. Yeah, step into the arena. Call in. Call in. Bring it. Bring it. Who's going to bring it first? Go ahead, Pat. Give me a call in. Or one of you, call in. Pat, if you think I'm wrong, call in and explain why. Fizzy Wig, you too, feel free to call in and take the piss out of me if you believe that I am wrong on this. And what do you believe I'm wrong on? Let's go for it. We only have 44 people here. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Harlan St. Clair, don't be sexist. 1 man and woman may enter also, and 1 man or woman may leave. Equal opportunity. Equal opportunity. Corbyn always wanted more autonomy from the EU, but he may have to prefer to resist it from the inside, which was possible too. Entity. Fair enough, Harlan. 2 entities enter, 1 entity leaves. I like to call, but house is too quiet. Cop out. Cop out, Winslow. That's a cop out. That's a cop out. Look, I've always heard that Jeremy Corbyn wasn't necessarily on board for the Remain campaign. That there was a certain political force that kept him in lockstep with us. Here we are. Here we are. Sir Bikes a lot of day. What's happening?
Oh, nothing much. I missed the first half of your programming, and you wanted people to call you. I believe you're talking about Brexit tonight.
I am talking about Brexit. So Pat Hacker said I was talking out of my ass. Now, I kind of made the point of saying that, making just a basic point. I don't even know what I'm talking about on my ass on. My basic point was Jeremy Corbyn's position on Brexit is nonsensical. And the position that I'm using here is the withdrawal papers, reading them verbatim, Labour Amendment access to the internal market, an intended replacement for the Amendment 51 on the EEA. It states that a negotiated objective should be to ensure the United Kingdom has full access to the internal market of the European Union, underpinned by shared institutions and regulations with no impediments to trade and common rights, standards, and protections as a minimum. The EU is not going to do that. The EU has already said they're not going to do it.
I want to leave, but I don't want to leave. Wait. You live in the European Union? You're in Britain? No, I'm right here, and actually tonight I'm in Cheshire, Connecticut.
You said I want to leave as if you were talking like you were from Britain.
Yeah, that's the way I get it. My friend Reggie posts these cool news feeds from RT, all sorts of other places, and I see their headline, and I just point out the fact of the obvious in a sarcastic way, and that's what it sounds like. We want to leave, but we don't want to leave. Translation, we don't want to have to. We want the traveling rights, but God forbid, we don't want you to take our jobs and send them to Eastern Europe.
Well, and that's the catch, right? So the moment that Britain leaves, okay, you're left. Now, there's going to be a transition period. During the transition period, for all intents and purposes, Britain is still considered to be part of the European Union during the transition period. But this video is specific about Jeremy Corbyn's position. And the position that I just read to you that is attributed to the Labour front bench, and I don't think The Guardian is just flagrantly lying about this, is nonsensical, and it's even impossible under the EU rules. So what am I missing? Pat Hacker said I was talking out of my ass. And I am asking this question, what exactly? Now, I wish Pat would have called, but Pat kind of punked out and didn't call. So fair enough, Pat. But I am curious, what am I missing on this? It seems like Jeremy Corbyn's position doesn't work. And again, one of his biggest supporters.
I was going to say the thing is, I think Jeremy Corbyn knows a little dirty secret or a little open secret, is that if he let's say he becomes prime minister, which is unless MI5 decides to rig the election like they did here in the United States.
Okay.
He understands that the Northern Ireland, Scotland are going to succeed from the kingdom.
You really think that Scotland is going to leave the UK?
Yeah, because they're benefiting more from the trade with the EU than they are sticking out with Britain. You got to look at that map of who voted to leave.
Yeah.
And the places that voted to leave was the areas of England that were hollowed out.
That I did see. So I did see that part where it was like 9 out of the 10 poorest parts of the European Union was in Britain. That blew me away. Have you seen that? It was something that Blumenthal, I think, tweeted out where... Okay, that's not it. But, I mean, that by itself kind of gets across this thing of why people decided to leave. I mean...
Excuse me, clearing my throat.
No, you're fine.
Sorry about that, sir.
You're fine. And sir, I'm not a sir, I'm just a guy.
But that's my point. You mentioned in an earlier video, I think a few months back, about how Northern Ireland would have to be annexed by Ireland to, about the customs thing.
Yeah, so that was one of the things. So, amid all of this chaos with Brexit, I don't know how close you've been following this. There have been elements of Brexiteers. One of the main Brexiteers, I think the guy's name is David Davis, was talking about leaving like 5 times. And it was one of those things where the prime minister was so weak that if he would have left, the prime ministership might have fallen apart because she would have lost all trust from the Brexiteers. You have, what's his name, Boris Johnson, talking shit about the prime minister being somewhat ineffectual at her job, saying that he wished she was more like Trump. And again, she's so weak she can't even sack him and get rid of him. This is like the 3rd or 4th time Boris Johnson has been talking out of his ass. And you have the prime minister, for the most part, that has been dancing around, not coming up with a real clear plan on what is going to take place, putting in a backstop, the backstop being, if we can't come to some agreement, then we'll just remain with these agreements that we've come forth in perpetuity. This is a fuckfest. Yeah. And this is supposed to be done within the course of like a year. It's such a calamity that you may have a situation where if she runs afoul of the DUP and the DUP withdraws their support, her government would collapse. Like I don't think I'm wrong on this. I don't live there. Again, if somebody lives there and they want to correct me, feel free. But I think I'm right on this. I don't think I'm wrong. This is a calamity to say the least. Now, if Jeremy Corbyn looks at this and says, look, I don't have to do squat. I just need to not be her. I just need to be a government in waiting. And if you've noticed, if you watch the Prime Minister questions, he's been hitting her relentlessly on this stuff.
Yeah, I would say he's been turning even more angrier at the whole situation. So when I see Jerry Corbyn, I'm wondering if he's going to be more of a strong arm when it comes to his policies and stuff like that. I'm wondering if he's going to, from what I've been hearing, from what he's been saying, he's going to get into power and he's going to, literally drain the swamp.
He might. Now, he may. Yeah. I mean, of all the people who may do that, he is at the top of my list for potentially may doing that. I mean, I like the guy. Like I full on like the guy. I mean, I'm dinging him on this particular point because I think this is a political game of sorts that he's playing, trying to essentially telling people, hey, I'm the guy who's doing the single market and she's the person who's doing the hard Brexit, and which one do you want, a soft landing or hard Brexit? With the problem being that soft Brexit doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You can't have it both ways. If it's a Brexit, it's a Brexit. You're talking about pulling yourself away. And he's talking about aligning himself so closely with the European Union that it doesn't look like he can have a Brexit at all. With the problem being, you can't have those 4 freedoms and be outside of the European Union in the way they're talking about. This just seems like nonsense to me. But again, I could be wrong. I don't live in Britain. And if somebody is here that is better understanding this than I am, feel free to call in.
Well, I think you're forgetting about the other countries in the
like Norway and there's one more.
No, more like Greece and I don't know. Is Turkey a part of the EU or
it is not?
It's still begging to come in.
Yes, still begging to come in. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So there's Greece. There's Italy, there's Spain, and these are the countries that have been hit hard.
Yes, they have. And hence, the reason why Italy chose essentially people who are Eurosceptics. Whereas Italy may be coming out of the European Union before Britain.
Yeah. I think he's waiting for the collapse to happen on its own from the looks of it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think all this yelling and that, it's like, okay, we don't know what to do. We don't really want to leave the European Union because if we do, Scotland and Northern Ireland goes their merry ways. And
it's funny. They had the Scottish elections or the Scottish referendum on whether or not Scotland was going to stay part of the European Union. And you had all of these people telling Scotland, you can't leave, you can't leave, you can't leave, you can't leave. There's no way you can leave. Certainly you're not going to leave us. Come on, Scotland. We've been together for God knows how long. You're not going to leave us. You're not going to leave us. What are you going to do without us, Scotland? And then Britain.
Run their trains better?
This is right. Right. And then Britain decides to leave the European Union. And Scotland flips. They're like, what? And now, what's her name? I can't think of her name. She's head of Scotland. I can't. What is her name? I can't think of her name.
Don't ask me.
but she's pushing for another referendum to leave the UK now, because of the UK leaving the European Union. And the Scottish National Party, every time they get up to the Prime Minister questions, the only thing they can talk about is the fact that they're leaving the European Union and they don't want to go. It's amazing.
Yeah. Basically, I'm think of Jeremy Corbyn in that role of Abraham Lincoln. He doesn't want the Union to fall apart. And he knows that, I got to show like I'm tough against it, and I hate what EU has done to England. But at the same time, I'm going to have to say, I can't. In many ways, he's, from the looks of it, he's just trying to be nonsensical, being political nonsensical to show, hey, I'm for leaving the EU, but not really. Because the open secret is, once they start leaving the EU, Scotland goes, Northern Ireland goes. I don't know what other part of the country goes.
I don't think they go. I think his issue here is that they don't want those businesses to take a hit. And I think, rightly so, that they're concerned that if they leave... For example, the European Union has put out a notice to the businesses in the European Union, in the car market, saying you need to get your parts from somewhere other than Britain, because when we leave the European Union, those parts are not going to be able to easily come across the border, at the very least not tariff free. Well, right off the bat, those businesses who are supplying those parts are going to take a hit. That's a logic thing. If these companies are no longer going to buy parts from these businesses, there's going to be some percentage that says, yes, we're going to get our parts from somewhere else within the European Union. Right off the bat, just right there. Let's say that's 50%. Then you're going to get a hit that's commensurate with the number of companies that says, okay, I don't want to deal with this. Like I can imagine if you're Jeremy Corbyn, or if you're somebody who's dealing with that, and the public itself is in a situation where they're somewhat panicked, not necessarily knowing what was going to take place, and you hear stuff like automakers, people who are doing like transferring goods, people who try to take stuff across the border and have to deal, with all this new paperwork and everything else. Let's say they're trying to cross Northern Ireland. They don't even have a solution to Northern Ireland yet. And conservatives, the Tories, are coming up with this fantasy solution that doesn't even exist. Like you can imagine that the people in the public are concerned with the bumbling that's taking place. And I think they're concerned about their wallets. I think part of the reason Jeremy Corbyn is saying our position is that we stay in the single market is because he understands that people know that if you leave the single market, that their jobs, their what they do is going to take a hit.
Yeah, I think you're getting it right there. But I have a question. Maybe you know more than this, but Britain still uses the pound, correct? Yeah. They don't use the euro, right?
That's true. That is true.
So I'm always wondering about this.
Like,
are
why?
they even think about this? Are they really ever going to leave? Is it just a big joke to say, well, we're not going to leave, but we're going to be putting like an extra tax on goods from the other side, but when they come out, they can buy like in the EU. I'm wondering if they're trying to aim for that nonsensical, non-reality, saying, well, our goods that go over there, they can buy them pretty much. But if
I don't think
they
so,
come
man.
here, we're going to tax them. I'm just wondering.
Nah, man, I don't think so. Watching the news shows, watching the amount of conversation that's taking place revolving Brexit, watching the developments that's taking place with the Prime Minister. I mean, you're talking about the situation where the government may collapse. This is not. They're not playing. Like this is not like Jeremy Corbyn may be taking this political position because he doesn't necessarily want to be all that strong on like we're coming like Boris Johnson in his unveiled audio clip when that clip came out. He thought he was just talking to his cronies. And he's like being bullish, like you need to be like Donald Trump, like saying stuff like that, like Trump will go in and there'd be chaos. But it's the very fact that he recognizes that there's going to be some level of chaos in them trying to pull him out the market. His big fear was that you don't really fully come out, that you're in this kind of quasi sitting on the fence type thing. But he completely misses why people are concerned about that. Like if you're a plutocrat and you're extraordinarily wealthy, well, there's a certain amount of glass between you and the pavement where you can take that perspective of, yeah, things will be rough and things will be tumble and everything else because you are somewhat disassociated from the decisions that you are making. Now, if you are somebody who, let's say, is in a small carrying company, let's say you just have a few people who or that you're employing, well, you are going to be dramatically affected by something like Brexit because you may not necessarily be able to cross those borders in an easy way that you have the freedom of movement now. Like they are dramatically concerned. There are a lot of businesses out there that will be adversely affected. Now, I'm saying this not as somebody who's against Brexit. I'm saying this just as kind of a, this is just somewhat of a logical continuation for Brexit taking place. Yeah. And the Irish border, John B., I don't know much about Brexit, but the Irish border is not a real problem. Well, you can't say I don't know much about Brexit, but the Irish border is not a real problem. Those things kind of clash with one another. Harlan said,
well, it's like, I was going to point out, it's like China to get around aluminum tariffs.
Yeah.
It's China shipping the aluminum to Mexico and then selling that aluminum to the United States under Mexican. So that if you don't understand what's going on, what that deal with Ireland is, that was before you hang up. I wanted to bring up when you were talking about what's his name in Ohio getting beat up by those cops.
Sam Ronan, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was about a year ago. I was reading it, the comments in RT about police brutality, and one of the comments comes from a guy, which I'm believing somewhere in Europe, says something. You better be glad that your cops are the way they are, because here in Europe they don't do squat. And I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. These people are obviously animals, but just a simple different perspective that people in probably other parts of the world are saying, gee, those cops are actually doing something.
Yeah, they're beating the shit out of somebody.
And I don't, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think other people around the world would like to have a police brutality in their backyard.
No, they don't. Nobody wants police brutality in their backyard.
Well, I'm just saying from what I read, maybe there's an underlying current.
No,
that
look, it's
you probably not hearing about. I don't know. I dislike it.
There is nobody in their right mind that wants to get the shit kicked out of them by cops and have cops be maniacs. Now, that being said, do some of these places may feel like the cops don't do their jobs? Fair enough, but there's a difference between a cop doing their job versus the cop beating the shit out of somebody. I think those things are different, if that makes sense. Like for example.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think you actually told it better than I did.
Fair enough. Hey, man, thank you for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. You have a good night, sir.
You too. Have a good one. Hello, who's calling?
Peter.
What's happening, Peter?
I just heard that guy, and I couldn't stop laughing after I heard him talking about
Brexit?
Yeah, but I forgot what he was talking about because I was laughing so much. I don't want to say what I was doing. I was making me laugh so much.
Uh-huh.
But it really helped in making me feel better.
What do you mean?
Oh, because I'm seeing you. He obviously he was from Britain, right?
No, he's not. He's from Connecticut.
He was.
Yeah, he's from Connecticut. No, he wasn't from Britain. He didn't even have a British accent. I said he was from Britain.
He almost sounded like Stewie.
He did not sound like Stewie.
A little bit he did. He sounded intelligent, is what I'm saying.
Fair enough, but he didn't sound like Stewie. And he wasn't British by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but I actually forgot what he was talking about the last 10 seconds.
He was talking about Brexit. Oh, he was talking about police brutality in the last few seconds.
Yeah, but he's saying that was he saying that we allow it?
No, he was saying that there were some places in the world where they were making a point that at least your cops are doing something. And I was like, yeah, they're beating the shit out of people. I was like, that's not something that people want.
Admit to that.
Yeah, that's not necessarily something people want.
Admit to that.
Say it again?
He didn't admit that our police are beating the shit out of our civilians.
No, he did. No, you missed them. What he said was, yeah. Let me explain what he said. He said, I understand that cops are beating the shit out of people. I'm not necessarily denying that. He said, but when reading comments on the video, some people said, just for another perspective, that they wish their cops were more active, or they wish their cops actually did their jobs. I was just trying to make a distinction between a cop doing his job versus a cop beating the shit out of somebody. One is against the law. Ideally, they don't necessarily get prosecuted for it. The other one is them doing their job. A cop stopping to help somebody who's had a flat tire is a cop doing their job. A cop getting a kitten out of a tree is a cop doing their job. A cop beating the shit out of Sam Ronan at 2 a.m. is not. Those things are different.
May I say one thing about my brother who was a cop?
Go for it.
A cop, if there's an accident happening in front of them, they're not allowed to help until they're called to help.
What do you mean? If something is happening in front of them, they're not allowed to help until somebody...
Because they're afraid they'll get sued.
Yeah, but there are cops who were undercover who...
No. My brother was a patrolman.
So if somebody was getting robbed in front of your brother, he was just watch.
Well, I'm not going to say that about him because he's no longer with us. But, yeah, I think that's what he would do.
Come on. Are you serious?
I'm not kidding. My brother committed suicide last year.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But
no, I'm sorry to hear that. But let's say it's not your brother. Let's talk about a sandbox world. And let's say in that sandbox world, a woman is being raped on the street. And you're saying that if somebody was off duty and they were walking by and a woman was being raped on the street, that he would say, well, I didn't get a call in, so I'm just going to walk on by.
I remember one time in New York where there was a guy who was off duty and he was helping someone who was getting robbed, and the cop who was on duty shot the guy who was off duty.
Okay. Oh, right, because he didn't know. No, I understand. I mean, I guess my question would be, did he need to pull his gun in the first place, and didn't he need to go to that extent? This kind of goes to the thing cops are maniacs.
The guy who's on duty, he's probably being trained that way. The guy who's off duty, he's obviously being a good Samaritan, helping someone out who's in trouble.
Agreed.
But like I say, it's training. You have to change your fucking training.
That I agree with you. No. I agree with you on this. I say the same thing. It's this thing of de-escalation. Like for example, Tamir Rice, 12-year-old cop jumps out of a car.
Within 2 seconds.
Within 2 seconds. Bam, he's gone. As opposed to maybe pulling further away to assess the scenario.
Put down your weapon.
Yeah.
With the loudspeaker that you have in your car.
Yeah, there's other ways to do it. The guy that was in Walmart, same thing. Cop runs over. The guy I think is like a fake toy weapon or something like that. And the cop kills him, shoots him. As opposed to, again, like you say, Put down your weapon right now. Now, that's aggressive, but at the very least, he's not dead. There's better ways to go about this stuff, man. And it's just, there are better ways to go about it.
I remember reading one story. I don't know what story this is. Maybe you can fact check it better than I can. I remember hearing about it, though. I think it was TYT that I heard about it on.
Mm-hmm.
A cop talked to him and persuaded him to drop down his weapon because the guy was suicidal.
Yeah.
And then his partner shot the guy, and then the guy who talked him down got fired.
Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? Wow.
Story like that.
That's amazing.
Like that. I'm like, why the fuck are you firing the guy who talked him down?
That's amazing.
I was fucking sergeant.
There was one case that I saw, and I was like, this is the craziest shit that I think I've ever seen. The guy, the cop tells him, he pulls him out of a car. The guy gets out the car, and the cop says, "Go get your license. I mean, give me your license. Show me your license." And the guy goes into his car to get his license, and the cop shoots him in the ass, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He was like, "You told me to get your license. I mean, you told me to get my license." He says, "Yeah, but you moved." Now, in his head, that was perfectly justifiable to shoot this person because for whatever reason, his training kind of pushes him in this way. Now, the police department will say, no, he's not trained for that. But let's be honest, at a certain point, when you have maniacs all throughout the country, there's something wrong with the training. There's something wrong with the training.
I just hope one thing. I just hope no one who has the flu gets pulled over because they sneeze. They'll say, "Oh, his head moved."
Right, he moved. He moved too quickly. He moved quickly. I didn't have a choice. Yeah, I didn't have a choice. You sneezed. Hey man, thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. I'm sorry I misread that guy's message.
No, you're fine. And I'm sorry to hear about your brother.
All right. Have a good day, man.
You too. Have a good one. That was an interesting call. That was an interesting one. The government don't want to lose support for cops or military, so they want people to distrust police forces. They publish stats and videos about police abuses for the reason police state under martial law. You know what's funny about this? Jimmy Dore brought this up to Gary Kasparov. I don't know if you watched Jimmy Dore's video on this. Jimmy Dore brought this up to Kasparov, and those people on that stage flipped out. They flipped out. I watched half of that video and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I was like, oh my God. That was a wild video, man. That was a wild video. All of them started attacking Dore. I don't know if you guys have seen this video that Dore did. He was talking to Gary Kasparov, and he asked Kasparov about essentially human rights abuses in the United States. And Kasparov and that crowd flipped. Hello, who's calling?
Hi, this is Kevin.
What's happening, Kevin?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. So what's going on with Brexit? Or are you aware, or are you paying attention to the Brexit stuff?
Yeah, it's pretty much through your show. I haven't been paying attention to it. But I just wanted to call with a little bit. Could I step outside that?
Go for it.
For a little bit?
Go for it.
All right. I called in Tom Hartman's program today. He had on,
no way! Seriously? What was the topic? I'm always fascinated by this because I could never get into Tom Hartman's show. I used to call all the time. I used to be enraged about some kind of Hillary Clinton. Like, God damn it, I'm fucking call Tom and talk to him. I could never get to him. So I'm amazed that you were able to get in.
I've been calling for years, so they have my number in their computer and they know I'm okay.
Ah, I see. Okay. Right, so what happened? What was the topic?
Okay. Well, whatchamacallit, they were talking with Rokana, and I said, first off, when he introduces him, I said, why don't you ever I said to Tom, why don't you ever introduce him as a Justice Democrat? And they didn't have an answer for that. He said, okay, and Rose says, yeah, I'm affiliated with that group, and I'm happy to be affiliated with that group.
Uh-huh.
And I said that my real question is, though, do you think that all this Russia stuff is becoming a neo-McCarthyism and is being used against the left for people like Jill Stein?
Yeah. What do you say?
And he didn't really answer it. He handed it off to Ro Khanna. And
what did Ro Khanna say?
I'm forgetting exactly. Well, he went on about I asked him before I said that. There was one other thing I said. What was it? Shoot. I said. Sorry, I just can't remember exactly what it was.
No. Just
I asked him a question, and he basically started talking about, I believe in third parties, and I think I said, how can we? I know what it was. I said, do you think that the consultant industrial complex, like the DCCC, is destroying our chances of winning?
What do you say? I mean, because you're somewhat right about this. I mean, when I know Nomiki Kant's one of the best things that she did. Now, mind you, there's a weird thing with Nomiki where she is this like quasi political consultant, quasi reporter. It's just bizarre. But when she was giving them a piece of her mind about the consultants, her head just moving, it's going all over the place, and she's like, "You guys are doing this." She was right.
Yep.
She was right.
Yeah, but
what did Ro Khanna say?
They ignored that, and they kind of said, we support third parties. He went off into this rant, and then it was like right toward the end of the hour that he was going to be on, so they never answered the two questions. But I wonder if they'll pick up my call next time I call.
That's hilarious. I'm amazed by this. So they just completely... So wait, so you said something about third parties, because otherwise why would they bring up third parties? Whatchamacallit? He's about him being a Justice Democrat. That's right. So I said those three things, and then he said, Tom said, you basically give your response, and Roe just kind of hem and hawed about believing in third parties because that's or outside groups helping, and he kind of killed it. He kind of dragged it out to the end of the hour, skating on the two things about. But they don't believe in third parties. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Why would they? Think about it.
Well, yeah, Ro Khanna said he did.
Yeah, I know, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you are a Democrat, let's say you're a Green Party member or a Democrat or something, whatever. Let's say you're a Democrat. From your standpoint, any third party that's to your left poses a problem for you to get elected. It eats your votes. Like, imagine for the moment Tim Canova running against Deborah Wasserman-Schultz and some other Democrat and some other Republicans.
Yeah.
So it pulls votes away. So Democrats, for all intents and purposes, hate the fact that Greens. Think of all the hemming and hawing that's taking place with Jill Stein just running in the race. The woman got like 0.12% or something, some ridiculous number, and they've hemmed and hawed and bitched and moaned just about that woman being in the electoral process. So
I think what happens is it like Bernie does too. It exposes how much of a hypocrite they are and how much of a corporatist they are, and they can't stand that when they have parties to their left.
It does. I mean, but it also kind of brings in a clear focus that the party is not the definitive left, and they understand that from the standpoint of them getting elected, they care more about getting elected than they do about the democratic process. Now, to be fair to them, the incentives built into it kind of push them to behave in that way. It's like if your job is to be a Democrat. Do you remember when I think it was what is her name? African American woman, Donna Brazile. When Donna Brazile came out, and Donna Brazile essentially said, they rigged it. Keith Olbermann comes out and says, of all the things that you can say, you've just found out that the party that you've given your allegiance to for God knows how long, that you've done video shows for on MSNBC, that you've fought for, that you've been a soldier for, that you found out that they've outright, over the top, unequivocally cheated one of the candidates that ran in the race. And your response to this is, Donna Brazile has just lost her career. Think about that. That's such an odd response. I mean, did either you believe that they cheated Sanders or you didn't believe it? If you didn't believe it, you've just been given some magnificent fucking news that your party that you belong to has just outright cheated one of the people who were running in the process. That wasn't a response.
I can't believe that somebody with that much political experience could not see it.
Of course he knew it.
She's putting one on. How could she not? She's putting us on.
Of course he. I'm talking about Olbermann. Of course Olbermann knew it, and Olbermann just said she lost her job. She lost her job.
Hey, I'm not. My job isn't to analyze politics all day, and I could see it.
Yeah,
tell me I couldn't see it.
right. Bernie Sanders supporters who was living through it could see it. I know goddamn Keith Olbermann could see it. I guess my point is,
first-time millennial people that were getting interested in fucking elections for the first time, they see it, and corporate media is like, "What's that? We didn't see anything."
And you know the sad part about it, all of those people, African Americans, when they vote, they tend to vote. You know, for us, there's only one party. Oftentimes, there's only one party. Most African Americans, I think even Hillary Clinton was able to carry like 90% of African Americans, like some insane number of people aggregating around a person. So for us, it's like one vote and one party. Even like for
and that
us,
party disenfranchises them.
Right.
That's what I did. That's what I said to him too on the Tom Hartman show. I said they were talking about this is the best part. They were talking about voter suppression and the Republicans with their cross check and why doesn't anybody solve it? And I said, that was my second thing I said to him was, first I said you should introduce himself as a Justice Democrat. Secondly, I said they don't do anything about voter suppression because they do it too. Remember the 200,000 that were kicked off of the rolls in the Bronx?
What did they say? Oh God, that's awesome. What did they say about that?
They didn't say anything to that, and because then I said right away I went to my third question, and then he hem and hawed about, I believe in third, and then I believe he went into his hemming and hawing and dancing around it.
Yeah.
And Tom, I think Tom was like, I don't know, Tom turned it over to him. Tom didn't want to touch it.
Tom is a Democrat through and through.
Yeah.
I mean that's what it boils down to.
It's sad.
And from their standpoint, from the political standpoint, two things. A, you don't want to alienate third parties. So if somebody asks you about it, you're going to say, I believe in third parties. Third parties are awesome. I think third parties need to be nurtured. We need alternative, blah, 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 blah. Now, in reality, though, it's fuck those. Look how they treated Jill Stein. I mean, honestly, right there by itself.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Neo-McCarthyism is being turned on the left, like Jill Stein, for instance, I said to him.
I'm so curious about Tom Hartman's answer to that, because Tom Hartman, of anybody, would be able to tell you the exact history, when it started, who was involved, the people who, the guy is such a fount of information.
Yeah, when he has his Ro Khanna on and what's that guy's name, bald-headed, he's got another guy, Mark Pocan, I guess they want to be Bernie Sanders in 10 years. I guess these guys are going on Tom's show because, Tom did brunch with Bernie for 10 years.
He used to have Sanders all the time. Yeah, he used to have Sanders all the time. I guess, I think Tom, if you took him out of the Democratic Party stuff.
Yeah, if Tom's by himself, if it's Tom answering calls, then I'd like to get his response. But he always leaves it to the guest. His guest. So that's why
Wow.
So maybe I'll call one day and ask him directly.
I've been trying to call into the Tom Hartman show for like 2 years, and I could never get in. I've always wanted. Look, Tom Hartman was part of my political awakening. And
me too.
I would love to have Tom Hartman come onto the show. I don't think Tom Hartman would ever do it. I suspect he would not like some of the questions that I would have for him, but at the same token, I think the world would be illuminated by the answers. I strongly suspect Tom Hartman, he might be a Democrat at heart, but I think if you had a different Democratic Party, Tom Hartman would be at home further to the left. I think he.
Yeah, I think he's a liberal and not a progressive.
See, I don't think so. I think, and I know this may be controversial, but I think he's, and maybe this is even worse, I think he's a progressive that sticks his thing with the Democratic Party, and so he's willing to go whatever the Democratic Party does. Maybe that's worse.
Because he said,
I think that's
it is, because he's such a smart person and such a smart thinker. He should see through that. He should see that the Democratic Party isn't going to change.
I think for him, he looks like, here's the thing. If you're looking at the arc of history,
his identity too much. Yeah.
Well, that's because Democrats focus on identity. Like that's kind of what I mean. Like if Tom was in a different context, I think Tom would be pushing for different things. Like I think if you talk to him, you say, "Would you like Medicare for all?" He would say yes. Would you like universal health care? He would probably say yes. But this is going universal. This is not even saying about universal. He would say yes. College for everyone, yes. he would give, like, I think of the list of things that you say you want or you believe that a country should have or civilization should have, Tom Hartman will probably be right there with you for each and every one of them, with one caveat: unless a Democrat is running in the race, in which Tom Hartman would default to whatever the Democratic position is. That's what because, and the reason why I say that is, like I said, he was part of my political awakening, and the arguments that I've heard Tom Hartman make.
Too.
Talking about like pre-Columbian civilization and the way people organize themselves, these were like
that's what I love about
arguments. Yeah, I mean that's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Talking about Thomas Jefferson organizing the Constitution around Iroquois society. Like, the guy is fascinating.
Yep.
He's utterly fascinating.
Well, he's good. Yeah, he is a good source of knowledge, but I can't stand how he defends the Democrats too much. I mean, even when they obviously are wrong. And he doesn't correct his viewers when people call in with, these Democratic standard talking points that you and I would look at and rip apart in a second.
But that's his show.
Kind of just let it go.
That's his show. But that's what I mean. That's his career. He's a Democrat.
I think you think he's afraid of offending the Democrats and not getting them on the show?
Yeah.
You think somebody told him you better not do this or get off RT?
This is the part,
he says
man.
He got off RT because he didn't have enough time.
I don't think.
He said
no, fuck that. I don't believe that shit. I don't believe that shit at all. I don't believe that at all.
I was wondering that too.
Tom Hartman. Yeah, because man, I don't believe that at all. He doesn't
have enough time. All of a sudden, right around the whole time of this Russian hysteria.
That's exactly what it was.
He can't be on RT.
It was like, fuck, man, I don't have enough time for this show. I need to stop the show right now because there's something going on. No, I don't believe that at all. Tom Hartman got off that RT show because the Democrats were screaming at the top of their lungs about Russia. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. I don't believe that for
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he had plenty. Yeah, well, it was too much. Yeah, I didn't have the time. It was too much on me.
Here's the thing: political pressure. Who's your group, if that makes sense? Like, your group, the people who you go to, who you get support from, your power base, you're going to care what your power base thinks. Tom Hartman's power base, for the most part, is just a bunch of other Democrats. Now, for all intents and purposes, if Tom Hartman starts towing a different line, Tom Hartman is going to take a hit. And you could see it on him during the primaries. He used to have Sanders on his show all the time. And he was
Lunch with Bernie, 10 years. For 10 years, Lunch with Bernie. That's how I got introduced to Bernie and fell in love with him.
Right. And so Tom Hartman was stuck in this weird quagmire of, I can't support Bernie full-throated, but I can't support Hillary full-throated either. And so he would always...
I'd be happy with both, he used to say.
Yeah. So he would end up in this weird quagmire where, he started getting pissy with certain Bernie Sanders voters.
Yeah. You know what I'm sick of hearing? The circular firing squad. Whenever you try to bring up something bad that the Democratic Party is doing, let's not bring the circular firing squad.
That's it.
Even R.J. Eskow said the other day, I think it was a hit toward Tom Hartman, that he's sick of hearing about this circular firing squad in one of his videos.
That's it.
And I think that was a hit because they're friends with each other. So I think he was telling him, hey, Tom, you got to sometimes criticize the Democrats so we know what to change.
That's it. That's it. So I'm curious. So you were a Democrat. Is that fair to say?
What's that?
You consider yourself a Democrat, and this is not a hit. I'm just curious because you use
I'm independent. I'm registered as independent because I can vote in either primary in my state.
Oh, very cool. What's your state, if you don't mind me asking?
North Carolina. I'm right below you, North Carolina.
You're right below me. You guys have had a fuck fest with North Carolina. They were, the governor won, the Democratic governor won, and the Republican Congress tried to neuter the Democratic governor. What the hell? Were they able to pull that off? I don't remember the outcome for that.
Yeah, they did neuter some of his powers.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and also Reverend Barber started his movement here. He's been for years.
He just got arrested today. He just got arrested.
Did he again? Yeah.
He got arrested in D.C.
for civil disobedience.
Yeah. Well, he got arrested in D.C. today. He's a brave man.
Oh, God bless him.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He is.
I was going to do a video on him. One of the Truth Dig reporters got locked up today. He was recording the cops arresting peaceful protesters, and the cops essentially hauled him in because he had one toe in the street as the cops were essentially locking up peaceful human beings. So, yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, just to let your people know, all the chatters in the chat room, I'm a Dingo Ate Your Baby. I used to be under my name Kevin Sacrifice. I thought I wanted something funner. Dingo Ate Me Baby.
A dingo ate your baby
So
is hilarious. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'm a dingo ate me baby. A dingo ate me baby. Remember that?
You're talking Seinfeld. I remember Seinfeld. I remember.
That happened in the 80s. It's still stuck in my head.
It was
that
Seinfeld.
It was dingo ate me baby.
That was fucking hilarious with Elaine talking about it. Yeah, I remember. It was fucking hilarious.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Well,
I appreciate you calling in.
Keep up the good work, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I try.
All right, let's get some other people in and be well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right, we are at an hour. Holy shit, we're at an hour. Okay. All right, let's see. Who else? Last call. Uh-oh. Zorro. What's happening, Zorro?
Hey, is this the Supremacist Star Wars show?
This is the Supremacist Star Wars show. What's happening, man?
I've been watching. There's a lot of crap about Solo going on. It's kind of funny and tragic at the same
I haven't
time.
seen that. I haven't seen Solo. Don't give me any. I didn't even know Solo was out. Is it any good?
I've heard most people say it's crap. So
I wonder if it's crap because
judgment.
people are stuck with this idea of Harrison. What's his name? Like looking at it as crap in the same way I looked at the first Star Trek as being crap when it came back out. And it's like, man, that guy's not Captain Kirk. Fuck that guy. That type of stuff.
Well, they make it out to be. This isn't what I call, but they make it out to be that Han Solo is supposed to be a much more independent and adventurous character, and he looks kind of like a klutz in the movie or something. And then there's a lot of stuff about social justice in there, so none of the hardcore fans care about it. But I was just trolling the opening. So
I have to check it. I mean, you might have been trolling in the opening, but I actually want to see them. I actually want to see them.
Yeah. There's a lot of videos going on about it. I know you deal mostly with politics, but wanted to say two things. First, Wednesday night, Hard Bastard is supposed to interview the people from the Mattis file, and we'll probably be discussing as well the undercover video.
Holy shit! No way. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Wait,
11 Eastern time.
Okay, 11 Eastern. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out. That should be awesome.
Second of all, that interview last week with Abby Martin, man, after it was done, I felt like I needed to go snort some refrigerant or something. Just to, I can't stand her. I honestly, Jamal, I try to be fair with you. I honestly, to the depth of my soul, I hate her.
Wait. But, So what? Why did you feel like you need to go commit suicide after? Well, I'm assuming suicide. As soon as you're talking about snorting refrigerator or something like that.
No, you can survive it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I didn't know you could survive it. But what was the thing that got you saying, you know what, I need to go snort refrigerator fluid?
Because Abby Martin, in my opinion, and I understand you have a political slant and I have a political slant, she is not a journalist. She's an emotional, Stay Puft Marshmallow woman. She's basically, every story that she puts out, she cannot hide any of her biases. She also works for a TV station that's basically covering up one of the greatest disgraces of the world. I've actually got
the Israeli conflict.
I've made what's that?
I said an Israeli conflict that nobody's paying attention to. Go ahead. I know you're talking about Venezuela. Go ahead. Keep going. I don't want to hit you in the knees. Go ahead. I know you're talking about Venezuela.
I get it.
Wait. Hold on. Tell us, sir, is the organization that she works for, and tell us, sir, is, if I'm not mistaken, a mostly Venezuelan news agency. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're making the point that her organization, her news organization, is trying to cover up what's taking place in Venezuela.
Absolutely.
Okay. Keep going. Is that why you're sniffing
to you, but
refrigerant?
Well, I've had on my show several times for hours actual Venezuelans who have talked about what's going on in her country. Mm-hmm. It's completely contrary to what she's been saying. And these aren't people who are, what she would call far-right racist trolls. They're not. First of all, she made the implication that they lynch African Americans there. Jamal, look at the demographics of Venezuela. In fact, I'll pull them up. But they're not white people over there. Okay.
Okay.
They're not lynching people on racist grounds over there. They are doing the what do you call them? The warimbas. Sure, they are violent demonstrations, but if you listen to her actual statements when it comes to Venezuela, and then you go to halfway around the world to Palestine, it's the complete opposite perspective. In Venezuela, people aren't allowed to demonstrate violently because they're white supremacist or they're ultra-right. That's what she calls them. You go halfway around the world, she calls for violent resistance. So how do you reconcile the two?
Okay. Well, reconcile the two between Venezuela. Okay, let's split those up. Because Venezuela is somewhat different than what's taking place in Palestine. And in Venezuela, is it fair to say that there's a certain part of the population that doesn't necessarily like the Maduro government, and there's a certain part of the population that does? Is that fair? I mean, you have protests, they have elections and everything else, and you have certain people who protest that are in certain demographics of the economic scale that hate that government. Is that fair?
I don't think that that's where it even begins. What if you're willing to concede that there are people who oppose the Maduro government?
Of course, there are people who oppose any government.
Right, but why did he have to defang his parliament, the National Assembly? Why did he have to basically cut the legs out of them, form a new constitutional assembly? Chavez, he implemented a new constitution only about, I think it was in 2001, if not in 1999. So now they need a new constitution suddenly because they lost the election.
But they didn't lose the election.
They lost the National Assembly election. It's a fact.
Oh, I see what you mean. You're not talking about the recent election that just took place for...
Not the recent election.
Okay,
the recent election was a fraud.
The recent election... How do you know the recent election was a fraud?
Not even the Carter Center would certify it.
I guess what I'm getting at is, how do you know that the recent election was a fraud?
How are we supposed to know if all monitors pull out and so much of the population has fled over to Brazil and to Colombia? Is that really a fair election when you have the largest refugee crisis in peacetime happening, and then you want to call that a fair election, Jamarl?
Wait. Don't misunderstand me. My goal in this is not to defend or to block for Venezuela. That's not my job at all.
But it is her job. You understand that. It's not your job, but it is her job.
It is not her job. It is her perspective. It is a difference in those things. I mean, I understand that there are some people in Venezuela who hate the Maduro government. Fair enough. It is fair to say that there's been economic sanctions, or you could say economic pressure being applied upon Venezuela. You can even make the point that says that there's certain corruption that's in the Maduro government. You can say all that stuff. That's fair. But is it a complete story of what's taking place from the standpoint of Venezuela? If you had
I have been covering the complete story.
If you had a string of right wingers on your show for Venezuela, and you may say no, they're not far right and everything else. It's like if I had Fox News and
are people that voted. The people that I have voted for Bernie Sanders since they came here. I can't understand why.
If I was on Fox News,
them on your show.
If I use Fox News as my main news source, I'm just giving an example, and I had one person after the next, and those people were Fox News types, I may get a certain perspective of the United States that's not necessarily indicative of the entirety of the United States. Abby Martin, is giving her perspective. Now, you may not like her perspective.
Her perspective is paid for by the government, okay? That's the same as, look, I'm not telling you not to read Telesur, but I'm also telling you that Telesur is basically the mouthpiece of a government that has driven so much of its population over to Colombia and to Brazil. You have doctors who are working as prostitutes right now. This is the largest peacetime refugee crisis in the world. And I'm not a pro-interventionist. I'm against the U.S. intervening in Venezuela. Some of these guys, they say, and these are socialist people, and they say, it's gotten so bad that we want the U.S. to intervene in Venezuela. I said, I'm not going to support a U.S. intervention.
There are a few people who look for ways to get the United States to do their dirty work for them, yes. But, again, is that indicative of the entirety of Venezuela? And the answer is no.
So
because
you're saying
wait.
if 6%
Because
of the country, if 6% of the country is armed police and military, then that's the perspective that
So
Abby
what?
Martin represents. It's not she doesn't represent a true cross section of the Venezuelan people. She represents the actual Venezuelan government line.
No,
and it's a fact.
So are you? It's not a fact. It's something that you're quoting or saying, but it's a little bit different than saying she represents purely the government line of Venezuela. Those are very different things.
Okay, when have you seen her actually criticize anything that's going on with PDVSA right now? Did the word PDVSA come out of her mouth during your interview?
Does it need to?
PDVSA.
I guess what I'm getting at is wait. I guess what I'm getting at is Abby Martin has a certain Abby Martin has a certain disposition and a certain perspective of what's taking place in Venezuela. The entire Western media. Well, the entire Western media has taken a skewed view of what is taking place, and she's pushed back on what the Western media has said, including going there and talking to some of the people who are there. Now, if the people who you talk to are a bunch of right wingers, then yeah, you're going to get a certain disposition of the government.
They're not right wingers. You're behaving right now just like the Democrats.
No,
you're behaving exactly like
them. I just
They're not right wingers.
I just disbelieve you. That's all.
Oh, okay,
I just disbelieve.
Can I ask you a question?
Go for it. You can ask me whatever you want.
Okay, so does Abby Martin, does she purport to represent a socialist / workers-based perspective on economics?
I have no idea.
Okay, what would you say her political beliefs are?
I have no idea.
You spoke to her for over an hour and a half.
Well, she's more to the left. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Okay, why hasn't she reported on the fact that at the oil ministry in Venezuela, and I have video of it, raw video, there were workers protesting in the cafeteria, and they sent in National Guard to beat the fuck out of them.
Okay.
Okay, so she never reported on it.
I guess I'm missing your point, dude. I don't understand your point.
No, the point is that she is the biggest fraud that there is. This is without even addressing the Israeli issue.
You think she's a mouthpiece?
She purports to be a human rights advocate.
Not to mention, I gotta be honest, dude. It's a little rich that you're making this argument about something that's taking place in Venezuela. The same argument can be used about what's taking place in Israel right now. I mean, this is an amazing argument that you're making here.
So then where is her moral standing to comment on this?
Where is yours? Where's yours?
What do you mean, where is mine?
Where is yours? Where's yours?
She works for the Venezuelan government.
I'm making this point. No. I'm making this point. You've made the argument. Wait. You've made the argument earlier that it didn't matter.
Has the word Nicaragua come out of your mouth since in the past 2 months?
You've made the argument.
When over 130 people were killed there.
You've made the argument earlier that it didn't matter what took place to the Palestinians because they lost the war. That's what your argument. So how on earth with the moral depravity associated with the arguments that you've made from the standpoint of protecting Israel, are you going to say anything about Venezuela? I mean, I find that rich to be coming out of your mouth.
Peacetime. Are people supposed to be shot in peacetime, Jamal? Answer that question. Are people supposed to be shot in peacetime? Are people supposed to get beaten in the cafeteria of their workplace in peacetime by National Guard?
Outright.
Is the national oil industry supposed to be controlled by an army general who basically militarizes the entire industry? Is that a peacetime thing? Answer that question.
You guys gas
Is the government
the baby.
supposed to be saying that it's fighting an economic war? That's not a peacetime thing.
I don't understand how you're making this argument with this blind spot about what your country has been doing. I find this to be amazing.
Is this my blind spot or is this Abby's blind spot?
No.
Because I don't work for the Israeli government. I work for me.
You may work for you, but you certainly have a certain disposition where you don't give two shits about what the Israeli government do to the Palestinians. And then you're making this argument about the Venezuelans as if you care so much about the Venezuelans.
I do report on what happens in Israel and Palestine, and I report on what happens in Venezuela, and I report on what happens in Nicaragua, which you don't.
Yeah, I guess the point that I'm making to you is
what you're trying to say is that you can't. You're trying to liken it to somebody trying to watch porn and play PlayStation at the same time. Like you can't do both things.
No, what I'm making. You can watch. You're watching porn and playing video games at the same time.
Yeah, you can't do it. Think about it.
Have you tried?
You only have two hands.
Okay.
And you need one controller.
Well, maybe your skills aren't that adept. I guess I'm joking on that. I guess I'm making a
bad visual. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a bad visual. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to go there.
Look what I'm trying to say, okay? There were over 130 people killed in Nicaragua over the past month and a half.
Okay.
And you didn't report a single incident of that. Nothing. And I've been watching your show. Nothing.
I don't
that's more people than were killed in Palestine. Okay, so this is where the moral equivalence is on it. I do give my opinion on all of these incidents, but you focus on one of them. Where's the love, bro? Where's the love for the Nicaragua?
On one of them. What are you talking about? I focus on the things that my country has a very distinct interest in, and we're giving your country.
Nicaragua, you don't think that there could be a refugee crisis from Nicaragua?
We are giving your country billions of dollars. Do you understand that? Billions of dollars. You guys have nuclear weapons, and you guys are murdering people left and right. That's us giving you that. Wait. That's us giving you that. My interest in this is because my country is getting involved in affairs that are taking place in the Middle East. And we're taking a huge amount of blowback for the shit that's taking place in this regard.
Maybe I haven't told you, but on my show, I always make it clear. I oppose foreign aid to any country, okay? So on that, I'll agree with you. I don't believe in foreign aid
Whether
to the
you
Egyptians
believe in it or not,
the
it's
Saudi
taking
Arabians.
place. But you're missing my point. You're asking me, why don't I focus on Nicaragua, or where's the love for all this other stuff? My focus is on the things that the United States has a discrete interest in. And I have a discrete
interest in every one of these conflicts. Are you aware what's happening in Morocco right now?
The United States no. We are not giving Morocco billions of dollars. We are not propping up their military system. We are giving.
How much is an acceptable sum? How much is an acceptable sum then?
Let me ask you this. Do you believe that the United States and Israel have somewhat of a special relationship from the standpoint of other countries?
Yes, I do. I think it's
then
also
if you
a
believe that there is
one.
somewhat of a discrete and special relationship between those two countries, why are you bringing up the other countries as if those things are equal? They're not.
They are equal.
No, you're bringing them up because you're looking for some kind of flack to throw up because you don't want to deal with the reality of what's taking place in that country.
There are more refugees fleeing from Venezuela just in the past year and a half.
Well, they can't flee from Palestine because they're stuck in a goddamn box in an open air ghetto. So there's that.
Yeah,
and I understand that Egypt is also blocking them on one of the sides.
You refuse to accept the fact that this is an armed conflict, okay? And
yeah, one side is rocks. One side is rocks. The other side is nuclear missiles and tanks. Armed conflict. It's not an armed conflict.
It is an armed conflict.
You are occupying somebody else's territory. If you're talking about armed, yeah, you guys are armed to the teeth in a large part because of us. This is kind of my point that I'm trying to make to you.
Jamaro, when a country loses a war, what do you think happens? Do you think they get everything back that they lost?
Right here. See, right there. If you're making the argument that you can do whatever you want just because you win a war, then you can't complain to me about this kind of moral equivalent stuff. At the end of the day, what you care about is domination of that region. You don't care.
Venezuela that's causing
care
outbreaks now.
You don't care about the Palestinian issues.
You don't care. And you don't care about the Nicaraguan issue.
Well, I care about the fact that you guys shot somebody in the chest that was a medic. I care that you guys shot 2,000 people with sniper rifles. I care that you guys murdered like 200 people. I care that you guys gassed the baby. I care that over 2,000 people were murdered and 80% of them were civilians. I care that you guys were using dumb bombs in areas that were small and isolated.
Really? At my count, it's only about 100. I think it's 110 people. 200 people, 2,000 people killed?
No, I just said 2,000 people injured. I said in the prior conflict, there were over 2,200 with 80% of those people being civilians. I'm making the point to you that my interest in the Israeli thing has more to do with the fact that there's a special relationship between the United States and Israel. That is not a special relationship between the United States and these other countries that you're throwing up to kind of make flack about. And you're making this argument.
Sure, but China has a special relationship with Venezuela. You don't care about Chinese influence in Venezuela?
No, I don't.
You don't care about the fact that Venezuela is basically owned by China now?
No, I don't.
Owned by Russia too?
I don't.
And I'm not saying this because I want a war with China.
No, I don't.
Okay,
those are not in my purview.
So you don't care that this country, you don't believe that these people are going to reach our shores as refugees as well?
No.
Because they have. Go to Doral, Florida. See how many people there speak Spanish, and they're from Venezuela. It's all because of what you're talking about. It's all because of assholes like Abby Martin.
It's besides the point, dude.
It is the point.
No, it's besides
because
the
you're
point.
saying that you're saying that your principle is that if you're involved in a country by giving foreign aid, that you're opposed to that. Fair enough. I'm also opposed to that.
I'm not opposed to
that we
foreign
can
aid.
agree.
No. You're misunderstanding me. I'm not opposed to foreign aid. I am opposed to foreign aid when there is an open air ghetto and you're stealing people's land and breaking international law. That's what I'm opposed to. I'm opposed to when you're giving billions
has armed
of dollars.
militants running around shooting people. Just in March, the Hamas executed 3 people. Okay?
You can always leave.
So what kind of ghetto has people running around with automatic weapons, with rockets?
Leave.
What?
Just leave. I mean, if you leave, you don't have to worry about them running around trying to take their land back. You understand?
Who has to leave? Who are you talking about?
I'm making the point to you that you are militarily occupying somebody else's territory, and you're bitching and complaining.
I was there. I was there in 2004.
And you are complaining. And you are complaining that they are pissed off about the fact that you're militarily occupying their territory.
They are not occupying the Gaza Strip. If they were occupying the Gaza Strip, then there would be no demonstrations on the fence. You obviously don't understand the meaning of the word occupy.
What are you talking about?
In order to occupy something, you have to have a presence there.
No, you don't.
You can call it a siege if you want, but that's not an occupation.
No, you don't. Have you ever played chess?
Yeah.
Do you know you can have influence on a square without having a piece on the square? I mean, you control the land, you control the sea, you control the air. That is literally an occupation.
Occupation definition.
You don't know the definition of occupation?
Action, state, or period of occupying or being occupied by military force. The land over there is not occupied by the Israelis.
What are you talking about? You guys are putting people in prison left and right. You're putting kids in prison left and right.
The Gaza Strip.
I've been there.
What?
You have a military presence.
I've been there too.
You have a military presence in that part of the world, in that region of the world, and you control, for the most part, the Palestinian landmass. You control their air, you control their water, and at any time you want, you guys drop bombs and missiles and air, all this stuff. You're acting as if this is some kind of conflict. You have tanks and missiles and planes and jets and bombs and nuclear missiles. Are you serious?
Not all conflict have symmetrical sides.
What I saw in this last conflict was over 2,000 people injured, over 100 dead, including dead babies, and there were no Israelis. Like, you can understand that this looks magnificently bad, and you're here screaming at the top of your lungs about all of these other your bleeding hearts about Venezuela.
The disparity is this: the Palestinians don't believe in protecting their population at all. They don't give a fuck.
That's nonsense.
That's why that's why a kid was gassed in a tent, because they brought the kid to a fucking protest tent.
That's called nonsense.
When have you brought an infant to a protest tent where people roll burning tires to the border? Is it?
You understand that the baby that was gassed wasn't on the front lines? You understand that, right? You understand that? I mean, you get that.
You understand that the tent. The tent is where everybody's organizing in order to get at the fence too.
You gassed
and also you can't see into the tent. How are people supposed to know there's a fucking baby in the tent?
That dangerous baby. Hey, how about not gassing it? How about that? How about not just gassing something where you don't know what the hell is in it? How about that? How about not shooting people with medical things on their shirt? Or how about not shooting people with press on their shirt?
How can you say the same thing? You said Alex Jones last week. You criticized him for having a son and chasing after Bernie Sanders. This is the double standard with you, buddy.
No, it's not.
You know,
Alex Jones is dragging his kid from pillar to post.
Alex Jones' kid wasn't even with him.
Alex Jones' kid was with him. Do you realize that the mom of that kid said, "Oh my God, he's been dragging my kid from point A to point B with this stuff, and he's been influencing my kid with the stuff that's been taking place"? Now you can say the mom is lying. That happens
in a divorce trial. That's not even what you're saying.
That wasn't a divorce trial. That was an update to the article on The Guardian. Read the article.
Jamaro, you're saying that you know the story with the baby in the tent. The uncle brought it to the tent. Her to the tent. What the fuck is the thinking behind that?
You guys gassed
think about that. Do you realize how stupid of a person you have to be to bring a baby to a protest tent?
Why were you?
Where
Why
there
did
have
you
been
guys
deaths
shoot
over
the
and over and over
Canadian
again?
doctor? You guys were using snipers, meaning the snipers could see exactly who they were shooting, and they were shooting in the legs, knees, and the head. Why were they shooting people with medical or press
if they wanted
on
to
their
kill
shirts?
more people, why didn't they just mortar the fucking entire crowd? Why didn't they just...
I'm asking you. I think they were killing people and injuring people as a deterrent, and they put terror into the crowd. That's what I think. And according to you, it doesn't really matter because they lost.
You did see that video. I did tweet to you that video of the Hamas official admitting that 50 of the 62 casualties were their own militant members. You did see that, right? I did tweet it to you.
Hamas
that was from their TV station.
And also, you understand that
was
Hamas
from their
won
TV
the.
station,
Wait.
Jamal.
You understand that
So
Hamas.
they take credit for it, and then you
understand
make excuses
Hamas
for them, Jamal.
won the election.
This is the same thing you do with Venezuela. This is the same thing you do with Abby Martin. It's always when it's America's fault, it's America's fault. When it's Venezuela's fault, it's America's fault. When it's Israel's fault, it's Israel's fault. When it's Israel's fault, it's America's fault.
What are you talking about? I never said it was America's fault for Venezuela.
They're responsible or they're not responsible.
I never said it was Venezuela.
You put out expressions like open air ghetto.
It is. It's an open air ghetto. Literally open air ghetto.
No, there's no open air ghetto.
It's an open air ghetto.
People running around in full military uniform, better gear than I had, drilling, doing massive demonstrations with banners. You know, that's not a ghetto, buddy.
Oh, the banners.
Okay, I've never seen a ghetto like that.
those violent, vicious banners.
That's not what a ghetto is. That's
banners.
not a ghetto at all.
Those banners.
There's entire demonstrations. I have CDs that they used to distribute with their major demonstrations of all their people in dress uniform. That's not
whether you want to call it an open air ghetto, whether you want to call it an apartheid state.
Go over to Baltimore.
Same.
Tell me where you see a ghetto that looks like that. Okay?
I have no idea what you're talking about. What I do know
what a
is
ghetto looks like.
An open air ghetto,
the ghetto,
or
the people
an apartheid
are armed
state.
to the teeth and drilling information.
What does drilling information have to do with the price of tea in China?
No, this is a well armed.
It's not.
This is a well-armed military force. That's what Hamas is.
It's not. They were burning tires. You guys have tanks and nuclear missiles. You want to call it asymmetrical warfare, fair enough. But let's be honest.
So
one side has a lot of people injured and killed. The other side, not so much.
How come they don't just detonate a dirty bomb? They can make nuclear fissionable material, detonate a dirty bomb there, kill 70,000 people.
You're talking nonsense. You're talking nonsense. You're talking nonsense. You're saying that the Palestinians.
You're saying the goal is to kill people.
No. You're talking about Palestinians who literally barely have water. They barely have water.
Do that. Answer that question.
They barely have water, but you're saying they have fissionable material to create a dirty bomb. That's nonsense. That makes no sense.
No, I'm saying the Israelis
You honestly don't believe that, do you? That they have fissionable material.
The Israelis.
Yeah, the Israelis have nuclear bombs. Yes.
So if the Israelis have nuclear bombs and they wanted to kill more Palestinians, but they didn't want to use a nuclear weapon, they could just manufacture from nuclear fissionable material a dirty bomb and kill 70,000 people at a pop.
Is that what you guys?
Why wouldn't they do
is that really what you guys want to do?
What?
Is that really what? I mean, think about what you're saying.
No, you're saying that the goal is to kill more people. But if the goal is to kill more people, there's better ways to do that than putting snipers at the border and picking them off one by one as they come towards the fence.
I didn't say the goal was.
You're being ridiculous.
No, I didn't say the goal was to kill more people. I said the goal was to put terror.
Demonstrations. Answer this one.
I said the
goal.
No, wait. I said the goal.
How come they occur every Friday?
I said the goal was to put terror into the crowd. To put the fear of God into the crowd. That's what I said. I said they were trying to terrorize the crowd.
No, but you're saying that the goal is to kill more people.
No, I said the goal is to terrorize the crowd. I was being very specific.
Okay, then why is the crowd continuing to come towards the fence, cut the fence?
Because you're on their land. You've stolen their land. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Jamal,
you understand that even in occupied territory,
an international border,
you understand
you're fucked.
In occupied territory, even in Nazi Germany, in France, when Germany had taken France, that you had maybe 10% of the population that would resist. But 10%, the majority of the population just kind of went along with what was taking place. But they still had a certain number of people that was pushing back and resisting. They believe it's their land. I can't. Like, I understand.
Yeah, they can believe whatever they want, but it's not the truth.
Oh, okay. Well, I disagree with you.
The international community disagrees with you.
The international community agrees with me entirely. And they hate the fact, if it wasn't for the United States, you guys would be condemned much or sooner. I mean, Obama
so
passed through that.
You're trying to make the case on the one hand that because of the United States, Israel is able to do whatever the fuck it wants.
It
right?
is. Yes.
But on the other hand, you're trying to say that the entire world is silent about Gaza when, in fact, China, which occupies part of India, which occupies Tibet, is on Palestine's side. Russia, which occupies Chechnya, is on
Yeah, but what do they do about it? They don't do anything about it.
You don't care about those conflicts. It's not a matter of principle.
They don't do anything about it. They don't do anything about it.
What?
The UN Security Council essentially prevents anything from being done about it. The United States always has a vote that protects Israel. Are you telling me that's not true?
Whenever something happens in one of Russia's countries, whenever something happens in a country that's allied with
Are you
Russia,
telling me that's not true?
It is true.
There you go. So why are you complaining? Why are you arguing that it's not, making this case as if it's not?
You're the one who's consistently talked about Israel to the exclusion of Venezuela and Nicaragua. I'm not saying don't talk about Israel.
That's exactly right.
You can say whatever you want.
Right, because Israel is the one, as you yourself said, has a special relationship with the United States. And I care about the fact that there's a special relationship with the United States, especially when it creates this kind of fervor all across the world at the behavior of Israel that the United States protects. So you don't care about the special
relationship between the United States and Pakistan, which occupies half of Kashmir? We do send a ton of military aid to Pakistan. You've never protested against that. And they occupy half of Kashmir, which is part of India.
Okay, I'm missing your point.
Okay, so you don't give a fuck about that. So there, we're even.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, yeah, you don't. So okay.
I care about the special relationship they were spending a huge amount of money on.
Fuck people over. They can encourage terror attacks in India, murder hundreds of thousands of people within their own borders. In our war on terror. You know the pun.
Yeah.
But you don't give a fuck about that. But you give a fuck about what's happening in Palestine because of the special relationship. We have a special relationship with Pakistan too. Don't be deceived by that.
It's not the same.
You don't do videos about Pakistan.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
No, it is
and
the
you know
same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same because it's worse.
No,
it's not the same because
you're
it's
bringing up
worse.
all this other stuff because you don't want to deal with the fact of what's taking place in Israel.
The casualty numbers in Pakistan are much higher. Much higher.
You don't want to do.
So
wait. So are you telling me that the quote-unquote most moral military in the world is compared to the Pakistani military? Is that what you're telling me?
The Pakistani military killed as many as 3 million people in 1971
Are
in
you
Bangladesh.
comparing the Israeli military and the Israeli government to the Pakistani military?
Yes, I am.
Wow, that's sad. That's sad. Because it's supposed to be a moral military, and yet you guys are killing people left and right. And you're comparing your military to Pakistan.
That's my question. Pakistan
and you're comparing your military to Pakistan in order to deflect from the stuff that you guys have been doing.
Is Pakistan a U.S. ally, and do we send them aid?
Yeah. Is there a special relationship between the United States and Israel? And why are you completely deflecting from the fact that Israel has been murdering people? And at what point did Pakistan and Israel end up being equals?
You don't talk about Pakistan ever.
Because I don't care.
Okay, why don't you care about what's happening in Pakistan? Are those people dying over there not as human as the Palestinians?
No, I care because we have a special relationship with Israel, especially with the amount of arms and weapons we're sending him. You can bring up 1,000 different countries. You can bring up 1,000 different countries. You can bring up 1,000 different countries.
Who arms the Pakistani government?
You guys are murdering people. You understand that?
Yeah, but Pakistan's
do you understand that?
You
just murdered a child. You murdered a 21-year-old who was a medic. And you're talking about the goddamn Pakistani military. You've just murdered a lot of people.
3 million Bangladeshis. You don't want to acknowledge that. You won't even say the word Bangladesh.
Your country has just murdered a lot of people.
How many people? 110 people? Yes, that's a tragedy.
Beyond beyond the tragedy, I'm going to the moral argument that you're trying to make. You've made the argument earlier that if you lose a war, no. You said if you lose a war, then it's fair game. That's your comment. So why should I give two shits? From your argument about this other stuff? I don't care about this other stuff at that point. You've made the argument that from a moral depravity standpoint that you don't care
about
what
happened
takes
in
place,
Pakistan.
what happened in
There is a war between
Palestine.
Pakistan and India.
I know.
Okay, so there you go.
But that's
so
between
you don't care
Pakistan
about
and India, and that's between two militaries. I'm talking about your country with an open-air
really?
ghetto and an apartheid
really?
state
Do you know how many
dropping
refugees
bombs
fled
into a small
fled from
box.
Pakistan? Do you know how many Hindus fled from Pakistan in order to get to India during the partition?
Do you know how many fled from
10 million.
from Palestine?
10 million.
Do you know how many fled
10
from
million
Palestine?
people. That was in the hundreds of thousands what happened in Palestine.
Again,
By the way,
I'm missing
my
this
grandparents,
issue. So
my
what?
grandparents had to
So
flee
what?
from Iraq.
So what? So
my
what?
parents had to flee
So
from
what?
Iraq.
So what?
Okay?
So what?
They were Jews in
So
Iraq.
what?
They got kicked out by the
So
Iraqis. I'm asking for my home back.
So what? You said if you lose a war, you lost.
So I'm supposed to give up my home in Baghdad?
I am holding you by your own standard. If you don't care what takes place from the Palestinians.
You're talking about special relationship with Israel, and I'm talking about special relationship with Pakistan. What's the difference?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I am asking. What's the difference?
You're literally comparing supposedly the most moral military in the world to what the Pakistanis do. You've named like 20 other countries in order to deflect from the fact that you guys have been murdering and killing people in an open-air ghetto. Now,
so you're trying to claim that there's a different moral standard. There's a different moral standard for the Israelis as opposed to the Pakistanis. Are we clear on that?
No, there's not.
Yes.
The difference is there is a special relationship in the way that the United States has been giving weapons and munitions to Israel, even when Israel has been killing people in an open-air ghetto. You may not like that, but that is what it is. You can deflect and name all these. What about Venezuela? What about this place? What about that place?
What do you call Kashmir?
You are naming all of these different places purely to deflect from the fact that you guys have been out there murdering and having an open-air ghetto.
No, I'm naming places you don't give a shit about. I mean, that's why you're bothered about it.
I have no feelings about it.
Pakistan receives massive amounts of military aid from the United States, but you never talk about it.
I have no feelings about it at all.
Oh, you don't have any feelings about it because Abby Martin doesn't talk about it and because Jimmy Dore doesn't talk about it. He never talks about Pakistan.
No.
What?
I don't care about it because my influence, the thing that I care about is what this country does and what this country essentially backs. I don't like us doing drone bombing in those countries, nor do I like us sending aid to countries that have bad intent. Let's say it that way. But let's be honest, there is a difference in the way that the United States goes about its relationship with Israel as opposed to other countries. You yourself has even said there was a special relationship. Now you're trying to deflect to say that this relationship is not all that special because you don't like the outcome of this conversation. At the end of the day, and I'm going to end it on this. I'm going to let you get the last word, but you guys have an open-air ghetto, and you guys have been murdering people, and you guys have been doing this for a long time. An open-air ghetto
with militants running around with automatic weapons in full dress uniform. Yeah, that's the only one in the world.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. I appreciate you calling in.
All right, have a good night, man.
You too. Have a good one. All right. Hopefully he got his point across. The world could hear it and make it their own determinations. I saw... Oh, here we are. Better than Last Jedi. Tell the last guy to call me. DM my number. Oh, that's hilarious. Hang up. I'm not going to hang up on anybody. Peter, version 1. Abby don't work for Telesure. She's an independent journalist that Telesure pays for. Fair enough. Hang up on the call. I don't want to hang up on anybody. You should host a debate on Venezuela from two people. Hello, who's calling?
I'm the one who called you earlier.
Oh, what's going on, man?
This is Peter.
Peter?
The last caller.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to him about one thing.
Go for it.
The Solo movie was not that bad. It was better than The Last Jedi. I'm promising you that.
Sir, you said it was better than The Last Jedi?
Yeah. Did you see Last Jedi?
I think so, yeah. I'm a Star Trek person. I'm not a Star Wars person. I'm going to lose subscribers after I say that. I'm going to lose like 1,000 subscribers. Like, fuck him! And all these people are going to go away.
Not a Han Solo. Okay.
But you said Han Solo was better than The Last Jedi. You're going to have hate mail. You know that, right?
Fuck him. But back to everything that person was talking about.
Yeah, he has some feelings.
Because he okay, here goes this topic. I was complaining about that topic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see your YouTube feed. Peter version 1. I was complaining about that topic.
Oh, you were like, hang up. It's like, hang up on him.
I kept telling you to hang up.
Yeah, I don't believe in hanging up on people. I mean,
I would have hung up.
Well, to be fair, he watches my show, and he has a difference of perspective from the standpoint of Israel. I
can understand.
I completely disagree with him on that perspective of Israel, but I feel some kind of way about cutting it off, if that makes sense. Like, I think if I called into a show, I wouldn't necessarily want somebody to just cut me off if they didn't necessarily like what I was saying. Like, for example, say I called into Tom Hartman, and say, as I'm talking to Tom Hartman, I'm bringing up this Russia stuff is nonsense. You know, it's more likely that it's possible that the Justice Department was going after Obama. And Tom Hartman would probably be looking at me like this guy has lost his goddamn mind. But would he hang up on me? I don't know. Would I want him to? No.
No, what I was saying myself was, before I said to you, was that he was actually like saying yes to what you were asking.
Because I was right.
And he didn't even realize he was saying yes.
Well, I think he was being honest to, like, so if I say, do we have a special relationship? That answer, of course, is yes. I mean, the relationship between the United States and Israel, we protect them all the time in the UN Security Council.
Oh, no, I heard about Israel, Palestine.
Yeah.
I know about what's going on with Venezuela.
Yeah.
I hear about, I listen to both sides of everything.
Yeah.
But I'm just mad that, come on, you're just so set in your ways.
You talking about me or him?
Him.
He's Israeli. He's a Zionist. I mean, in his mind, he has this idea that, you know, they own that territory. That territory belongs to them.
I forgot the joke, but it was a funny joke. Did you ever see that guy who looks like a werewolf on Jimmy Dore? He has a Netflix special.
He looks like a werewolf.
Yeah, he's a heavyset guy. He has a big long beard.
It's not ringing a bell. Yeah, it's not ringing a bell. Heavyset guy with a beard.
What's your email?
It's Jamal Biz. It's under the thing. It's under my about page.
I'll email you the link. This way you can see it.
Okay, fair enough. All right, my man. I appreciate it. I'm gonna check out Solo, and I'm gonna make my own judgment on it between you two.
All right.
I'm gonna check it out.
But Solo wasn't that bad. That's one of the reasons I got mad.
Fair enough. I saw I just know sometimes when there's a new actor for something, let's say like Captain Kirk switching, or you know, people sometimes just greatly dislike the new actor. They look at this stuff and they're like,
you saw Force Awakens, right?
Yes.
Well, how the hell are we gonna get a new actor for Han Solo after that movie?
Oh, yeah. Well, let me get this, because there's another caller. Is that okay?
All right.
Have a good one, man. Brian, what's happening, man?
Hey, what's up, Jamal? Good to talk to you, man.
Absolutely. What's going on today?
You know, that last caller, I got to tell you.
Huh?
Not the Solo guy. No. The other guy.
The one before, yeah, the Israeli.
Yeah. Oh man.
He has a perspective.
How you can be that delusional. I mean, the whole problem here is that we have this special relationship with a country that is engaging in terrorism.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be against terrorism.
Well, the
That's
wild part
goddamn point.
The wild part about this is it's like it's like having it's weird to me to have such strong feelings about human rights abuses in Venezuela, and then you look at Israel and be like, yeah, they lost. They lost a war. It's fair game. And then it's like, you're supposed to expect me to have some kind of feelings about this other stuff. It's like, it's like the very act that you can look at the situation and say, fair game because they lost the war. So anything that happens to them, they're just going to lose their territory and there's open air ghetto. But I have great deep feelings about the Venezuelans and the other people. It's like, are you serious? Are you serious? My interest in those things is not there because I don't necessarily pay attention to those things. I pay attention to the things that are directly, to some degree, related to the United States. That ends up being Britain, the United States, sometimes France. If we're invading some other country, let's say in like Yemen, the wars that we're engaged in, be it Syria or in these other countries, I care about those things. I am not going to care about the things, I'm not necessarily going to be defending Venezuela. And it's weird. I've seen some leftists do this, where they would get out there and defend Venezuela. And I was like, why are you defending Venezuela? I think
the solution here between Israel and Palestine, get secular leaders together. Get secular leaders from both sides. Leave out the damn religion because that's what's poisoning this whole damn thing.
Religion has nothing to do with it. This is not a religious issue. I mean, I understand what people say. Like, people like to make this as if this is some kind of esoteric issue, like these religions are feuding and everything. Nonsense. It's no more religious issue than, civil rights in the United States was a religious issue. The lens that Martin Luther King might have used or Malcolm X might have used in order to contest what they considered to be a racist system that was in place was religion, because they didn't believe that they could, get to any real measure of change from the standpoint the way they were living. You can imagine if you were living in the South as a slave, or if you were living in the South, let's say in Alabama, and it was in the 1950s or 1960s, you can imagine that you would feel that the world will always be this way. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to try to come up with an idea on how we can get this world to change. One of the beauties of religion is delusion. This idea of I can delude myself into believing something. Right. The catch is, though, that sometimes it's not a delusion. Sometimes you need that thing to get you over the edge. And that religion is sometimes used as a lens for which to do that. Now,
I understand, but what I'm saying though is, with here in the U.S. in particular, the reason why we are so invested and involved there is mainly on religious grounds. I mean, look at the religious right here in this country, and the way that they will do anything to defend Israel, regardless of what harm they do.
No, that's partially true. I mean, we also use them as their attack dog in the region. I mean, people like to make this thing.
That's true too.
Yeah, they try. Like, sometimes people like to act like it's the tail wagging the dog. Like Israel is getting the United States and doing, but it works the other way too. I mean, think about the situation where we want to attack that particular part of the world, but we ourselves can't do it because it would be too much blowback. So we end up having Israel do it. Like, it's a mutual relationship. This is kind of what I mean when I say this is a special relationship. It's not the same. It's not.
It's not the same.
It's not the same as us in Pakistan. You know what I mean? Or us in Venezuela, or us in Nicaragua. It's different. It's not the same. You could hear Noam Chomsky make this argument, talking about this kind of.
He makes it brilliantly.
Makes it brilliantly. This interesting dynamic where Israel is essentially taking the land in the same way that America took the land, and how you're committing a certain genocide with the Native American population. Noam Chomsky makes this point amazingly well. But from his standpoint, if you were, it's weird, man. I have a certain sympathy in this case. Like, if you were born in a society, and being born in that society, you had a certain disposition because the people in that society had a certain disposition. Is it your fault, or is it the society's fault, or is it historical significance fault that kind of propel those people to take those dispositions? And can you rise above those dispositions if you were born and raised into it, especially if there are all the incentives in the world to maintain it? Like,
but but that's to my point. If you think about it, because the whole narrative there in Israel is that the land was given to them by this celestial dictator in the
it's
sky.
Nonsense. I mean, they were willing to take other parts of Africa when they were talking about moving the Balfour document. They were going to be
same thing with what was it here in the U.S.? It was called Manifest Destiny here in the U.S. when it came to Native Americans. So
that's exactly what it was.
Kind of thing. What I'm saying is this mentality has got to be squashed. We've got to stop with this nonsense.
Yeah, but how do you stop with the nonsense when the United States protects everything that they do? Like, they just murdered.
That's what has to end.
They just murdered that.
Yeah.
I gave the story talking about when I was over there, and I was this young woman. The woman was amazing. And I think seeing that 21-year-old get killed, it bugged me. Like it bugged me on a few fronts, but part of the way that it definitely bugged me was because it was this feeling of, whatever happened to the woman over there that I knew that was so nice to me, that was ferocious in regards to the way she would push for the rights of Palestinians, even though she was Belgian Palestinian, so she can come and go. Was she, or is she, or has she been involved in these conflicts? And was she part of the people that have lost their lives over this particular struggle? Like this girl right here. She's gorgeous. And I think part of the degree that, it makes it like they were saying, calling her an angel and everything else. That does not help their cause when she gets shot in the chest through her back. And she gets shot through her chest, through her back, because she's helping some other wounded person. And then Israel comes out with a video saying that she was sent there by Hamas, doctoring him, just making shit up. And so when I see that, to me, it comes across as if, it's like you murder somebody and then the person puts the blanket over the person's face so they can't see the face because they knew they committed a crime. I mean, this stuff is nonsense to me. It's this stuff is done in order to hobble the resistance and try to create a deterrence from people coming and protesting. That's what it boils down to. We're going to shoot some people in the head. We're going to shoot some people in the knees, some people in the groin. We're going to hobble a lot of people in order to stop those people from coming back to this gate in order to protest the fact that they're in an open-air ghetto. And then when they come back, they're like, holy shit, these people came back to the gates to protest. Well, yeah, because they're in an open-air ghetto.
Right.
There's always going to be a certain percentage. No justice, no peace.
The caller before who's saying that the Palestinians should just stop being aggressive and just back off.
Just lay down.
What does he want the Israelis to take from them?
Just lay down and take it.
How much more land does he want them to take? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, at this point, I don't even know. It's like I don't even see how you're going to have enough land and even to have a Palestinian state at this point.
No, I don't either at this point. With all the land that's already been taken from them.
Here's the question: Do you think a one-state solution would work? One man, one vote, in the same way that South Africa was able to do it?
No, there's been too much time has gone by.
What about South Africa's apartheid?
Need to exist, but they need to coexist.
Well, that's kind of my point. Wait. What about South Africa's apartheid? I mean, apartheid was a brutal, racist regime, and
it was,
and they had nuclear weapons. They had all these things. Then they got rid of the nuclear weapons when the Africans took over, and they were able to come to some resolution in the sense of being able to live together. Now, I'm not saying that everything is perfect. I'm not saying everything is great. But at the same token, it's better than a fucking apartheid state.
I agree.
I think the problem with Israel is they want to be a Jewish state, which means that you can't have Arabs.
They want their religion to be part of their state.
Which is problematic.
And that is extremely problematic when right next door, or you're going to try to coexist in the same government with
Arab neighbors.
Muslims. It makes it incredibly problematic, and that's why my solution is to just leave religion out of it.
How do you do that? I mean, come on, you're talking about the Muslim world. Let me tell you this: when I was over there, and we were taking a taxi from one part of Bethlehem to another part of Bethlehem. She was taking me to see the clinic that she worked at. And when we were in the car, the cab driver said something, and he thought he didn't know where I was from, and so he was charging me some ridiculous amount. And she started speaking Arabic, and he's like, "Oh," he's like, "Oh, my bad." In which case, I don't know how you reconcile Muslim faith with cheating people, well, whatever. But she said something, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not that religious." And she looked at me like she was like, "Shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up." With this clear thing of, do you know where you are? It was like, it's hard to get it across. Like this look like it could have cut glass. What the fuck are you? Shut up, shut up. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do it.
Well,
and for that matter, do you need to do it?
I think you carpet bomb the whole area with books by Dawkins and Hitchens and figured it out.
I guess what I'm saying is, do you need to do it? I mean, there is a such a thing. Look, I think part of the issue, and look, I don't live there, and so I don't have the pressures that are affecting me in the way that the people who have the pressures there that are affecting them. So let's be fair.
Yeah.
And even if you're talking about what takes place here in the United States, you have enough wealth to get rid of poverty multiple times over. And it's not a situation where people give up their station in order to improve the lives of other people. It doesn't happen here. It rarely happens anywhere else. South Africa was one of those rare places, but that was because of the pressure that was applied to South Africa.
Right. And I think we can do the same thing with Israel. I mean, it's going to be a little more dicey simply because of religion, but I think it's possible.
And the United States.
And what we've got to do is we've got to stop taking sides in this.
Let me ask you this: What do you think religion has to do with this? I'm curious.
Because the Israeli people feel that they're tied to the land because God gave it to them.
Oh, I see what you mean. You're talking about Zionism thing.
Yeah. They feel that they have a divine right to the land because of this book that was written back in the Bronze Age. That, I mean, it's a collection of fairy tales.
Yeah, it is. But you know, white Americans used to think the same thing about African Americans. Like the power. I guess what I'm getting. Look, when I look at the Palestinian stuff, I look at it through the lens of African Americans in America. That's the way I look at it. Like when I look at that struggle, I look at it through the struggle through this lens. You know, whites had this kind of Christian belief system that African Americans were inferior and all this other stuff. But I don't think this stuff is really religion based. I got to be honest. I think about this in the same way I think about politics, that incentives kind of create the format in which people kind of organize themselves around. Like, so if you have an advantage by doing X, well, you just so happen to find those people doing X that lends themselves to the advantage. Like, very rarely do people do things that go against their self-interest in these situations, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a situation where somebody just randomly, for whatever reason, takes a disposition that is worse for them. Oftentimes, they would take positions and ideology and iconography that explains why they are in the dominant position and why the other people are in the inferior position. I think that took place in the United States. That took place when you're talking about in the 60s or the 50s, where African Americans were in the subhumans, where they were 3/5 of human beings.
Right.
You know, it just so happens that whites, coincidentally, were advantaged by this because they could use those 3/5 human beings for slave labor.
Right.
But I guess that's what I'm kind of making a point, that this seems to be more along the lines of things where they're advantaged by. The religion is just the coating that's on it.
Right.
And let me ask you this. If the United States, let's say you get a president, I don't know who the president is, let's say President X, and that president says, look, I'm cutting all the funding into Israel until you guys work this shit out. Do you think they work this shit out?
I don't know. I think religion is kind of what's holding them up. To be
really?
That's my take on it. I think religion is the thing that's holding this whole thing up.
Do you think it's holding the whole thing up from the standpoint of Netanyahu, or do you think it's from the standpoint of the people themselves?
No, I don't think it's the people themselves necessarily. I think to an extent it is, particularly the leadership. And I think it's also the fact that you have the religious right in this country that
true.
Has a vested interest in it because they have the same holy book. I mean,
that's true. And they think that that's where the end of the world is going to take place.
Yeah, exactly. Just real quick, Kelly Lane wants me to ask you, or first off to say hi.
Tell her hi.
And ask if you'd be interested in doing a live stream this Saturday night for Assange.
What time?
I don't know yet. We'll. I guess we'll work that out with you.
I know they were talking about a visual, and I was getting hammered with Kelly in the last visual that they had when we were at the thing. You know, they're talking about the left forum.
Right.
So yeah, I'm game. I didn't get the chance to go to the last two. I think the last time it was the Left Forum, and I forgot what was taking place the time before that. But all things being equal, yeah, I wouldn't mind going. I mean, I wanted to be in it last time. I didn't think they were going to still be going. I think it was like, when we got back to the room, I think it was like 1 a.m. or something like that. I was hammered. And I didn't realize that they were still going. And it's funny, people keep saying that I was wasted. I wasn't wasted. I was just tipsy.
You were wasted. You were definitely tipsy.
I was just tipsy.
Yeah.
I was just tipsy. They was like, you were hammered. You were so wasted. I was like, I wasn't wasted.
I said to chat that you were wasted. I was just making fun of you.
Yeah, I wasn't wasted. Kelly, the funny part about it is, I think Kelly, I forget the name of the drink that she had, and I had a bunch of mojitos.
Moscow Mule. I drink them myself.
Serious? Oh, seriously? The Moscow Mules?
Yeah, Moscow Mule, yeah.
That guy made the hell of those mojitos, man. Those are the best mojito I've ever had in my life. Yeah. Honestly, I don't drink. Like talking about, it's few and far between where I actually drink. My feeling was, we're at the Left Forum, I'm around a bunch of lefties. And it's funny, it's so weird when you're in something like that and all of the people around you are lefties. And all of the stuff that you guys are talking about under normal circumstances, nobody would know what the hell you're talking about. And you're just like letting it fly. Universal basic income, UBIs. You're talking about college tuition, all this stuff. And you're like, you're just feeling yourself like, yes, let's get a drink. And you're like, that next morning, you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm going to die. I can't get out of bed. Yeah. But no, man, I feel where you're coming from. I guess I agree with you partially. I guess I see where you're coming from. From the standpoint of the right, it's religion. Like honestly, like the Ted Cruz types, where you get into this kind of religious belief and stuff.
Exactly. Where they think that's going to be where Armageddon starts, and they're heavily invested in it because of their Bronze Age fairy tale book. It's bizarre, man.
It is bizarre. But again, I still look at it from the standpoint of there may be a religious coding on it, but let's not kid ourselves that stealing of land is an also, for their standpoint, we get to appropriate more land.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
The question becomes, much of the water is tainted. They've shut down electricity when they didn't necessarily like, these guys going for states. They were trying to get themselves to be considered a state by the UN, and then Yahoo shut down their electricity and all this other stuff in order to put political pressure on them. The question becomes, what's the end goal? Like, what's the end result? Like, is the end result where you take so much land, we just put them into like a little corner of a box and they just die off? Like, what is the end result of this particular situation in this conflict? I mean, I don't know. I'm somewhat sympathetic to this thing of people being born into a situation in which case they kind of they take on the attitudes and the demeanor of the culture that they're around. So I get that. By the same token, I can't necessarily give that a pass because you can't just give atrocities a pass. You know what I mean? I don't.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. The right answer to that, non-intervention, is the reason why I'm like, okay, hands off. But the problem is, it's not hands off because we're giving them billions of dollars. So.
Right.
Yeah. So, dude, I appreciate you calling in, man. And tell Kelly, yes. No problem. I need to know a time, though. She needs to direct message you at a time.
With you. We'll be in touch.
Okay, very cool.
Okay.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Have a good one, man. Yep, you too. Bye.
It's time for Jamal to play the black card. Jeremy Gelman, what? It's time to play the black card. Sebastian Simon. What's happening, Sebastian? You're probably going to be my last caller.
No. Hello. This is Jeremy Corbyn calling as Premier of the UK and Prime Minister from 2019 from one of these wonderful time tests that we happened to invent in the months following my election. I know it sounds dumb, and it was dumb then, but the position actually emboldened Theresa May to call a disastrous snap election in 2019 in May, which allowed me to not only take over the majority as Labour leader, but to also trigger a leadership election and actually get the premiership and become the new Prime Minister of the UK. I know it sounds dumb now, and I've apologized many times for it, but with these new time zones, it's wonderful. And I'm not trying to excuse my previous comments, but we're getting there.
Well, Jeremy, I have a question, Jeremy. I have a question. So, Jeremy, I've been looking at your proposal. Let's call you Honest Jeremy. And look, so I can show the tire, everybody else who's seen this. Labor amendment, access to the internal market. Now, you put this up as an amendment, and it says it right here. Right here. Proposer, labor front bench, and you being Jeremy Corbyn is part of that front bench, seeing as you're the head and leader of the opposition. And it says, an intended replacement to the Amendment 51 on the EEA, it states that a negotiating objective should be to ensure the United Kingdom has full access to the internal market of the European Union, underpinned by shared institutions and regulations with no impediments to trade and common rights, standard and protections at minimum. Now, if the whole point of this is Brexit, and Brexit means Brexit means leaving, how on earth are you going to pull that off, seeing as the 4 freedoms that are associated with the European Union are not negotiable, meaning this idea of freedom of movement, freedom of capital, freedom of services, etc.? How are you going to get this? This seems rather impossible. And the thing at the bottom, before I even read the bottom, I was like, how is they going to get that? It says, because what it proposes is more or less impossible under the EU rules. The European Union would literally have to change its rules. Why do you believe that the European Union is going to change its rules for you, Jeremy?
Oh, no, they didn't. No. They didn't. There was no way they were going to change the rule. But it did embolden Theresa May to think that she could actually have the power to get a stronger hand in Brexit negotiations in 2019. And it was an incredibly outlandish proposal that is what I hoped could manage to convince the EU to perhaps make a slightly better, slightly softer, and even possibly nullifying a lot of the consequences of Brexit. But
I see what you mean.
I see what you mean. And it's allowed me to become Prime Minister. So yes, really bad move that really kind of blew up in our face.
Well, wait a minute. Wait, Jeremy. Wait, come on, Corbyn. I never said it was a bad move. I said it was somewhat of an impossibility. I guess what I'm getting at is, from a political standpoint, if you're trying to essentially pressure the Prime Minister and show somewhat of a disparity between what she's offering as a hard Brexit and what you're offering as this kind of imaginary soft landing, well, if people look at the imaginary soft landing, they may be enticed to go for the imaginary soft landing, not realizing that it's imaginary. In which case, you may be able to kind of pull people over to your side purely just because they don't fully understand what's taking place. Is this politics?
And that's exactly what happened. That is what happened in the run-up to that May snap election, is that people started coming towards my side, towards this imaginary soft Brexit, and Theresa May wanted to get a stronger grip, like she did in 2017 when she called for that disastrous snap election, and the Conservatives lost even more seats, Labour got the majority, and we were able to finally actually assume power and to actually turn me into the UK Prime Minister.
Man, I really hope you become the UK Prime Minister, but I got to be honest, I have no idea what. Let me ask you this, Mr. Corbyn, I appreciate you logging on to the show. I didn't know that you listened, but I completely appreciate it. Let me ask you this. So what are you going to do for the Northern Ireland border issue? I mean, even if you got what you wanted here, that still doesn't necessarily solve the Northern Ireland issue. What's the solution to that one?
Actually, Ireland and Northern Ireland are now no longer part of the UK. They're actually one and the same.
You're giving it up? You're giving up Ireland? You're giving up Northern Ireland?
It seemed like the best solution because it was almost impossible to be able to trade and crossing over that border because it effectively is unpoliceable. It's really unjustifiable to keep that border if the UK is not in EU and Ireland is in the EU. And the Irish citizens seemed to want it, so they ended up putting a referendum forward, and they were able to pass it to dissolve the border, negotiate out the differences, and now it's a two-religion country, especially now that the Catholic Church has started to relax its position on certain things like abortion. They've gotten significantly better in that regard, and that's eased the tensions over there. Also, to be fair, Northern Ireland compared to Scotland, which is a far more resource-intensive and nuclear-intensive part of the UK, is a far more necessary thing to keep within the UK if we can.
Wait, just so I'm clear. Wait. Just so I'm clear. And I don't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Corbyn. Just so I'm clear. You're giving up Ireland, and you're saying you're kicking it to the hounds because you don't really need it because it's not that valuable, and the thing that you really want to keep is Scotland. So fuck Ireland. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
It wasn't quite fuck. It wasn't quite fuck Ireland. It was the Northern Ireland people seem to want to be closer to the EU, and they also seem to want to be closer to the common Irish Republic.
So does Scotland.
People on the other side of their border.
So does Scotland. Scotland has been screaming at the top of their lungs about staying in the EU. Every time the guy for Scotland stands up, what's coming out of his mouth is something about the EU. Scotland also wants to be part of the EU. Are you allowing Scotland to also go away?
If Scotland decides that is what's best for Scotland, that may be the case. We don't fully have any staff growth for that up right now, but it is something that they're definitely considering. Although it would mean quite a bit of changing both in monetary policy and in currency. They effectively have to reverse about 150 years worth of
that's what I was
work.
That's what I was about to say.
It's going to be difficult, but ultimately, in a world where we want no more nuclear war, perhaps it is for the best.
You are giving up. You are literally going to preside over the ending of the of United Kingdom.
Granted, yes, but ultimately that may be the best thing for each individual place. Also, Wales was unbelievably pro-Brexit, so they also may be bouncing off, but honestly, it's Wales. What can we say?
I have to be honest, Jeremy. I'm amazed by this conversation. I mean, I didn't think any prime minister would want to see the decapitation of the United Kingdom in this way.
It's an unfortunate twist. I wish I'd seen it coming, but honestly, it is what each individual constituency wants. And we have to respect their wishes, because we can't continue to sort of dismiss Scotland. We can't continue to dismiss Northern Ireland as lesser voices in the United Kingdom. They are worthwhile people, and they deserve their voice.
Now,
in Westminster if they want to be, and not if they don't.
Now, let me ask you this. Where are you originally from? Okay, so just to put this to the side, because I think this is fucking hilarious. But I do want to be real for the moment. I love this, because this is hilarious. It's like, yeah, fuck Scotland, fuck Ireland. I could just be Britain. I love that. But which part of the UK are you in? I'm curious.
Sorry?
What part of the UK are you in?
Well, I was recently in London, but then I decided to go and find out how those in the Isle of Man, one of our least populated areas. I've been traveling around the country trying to get public input on whether we should continue as a united sovereign nation with Wales and Scotland, and not. And it remarkably seems to be far more divided and nuanced than I really ever thought possible. Largely, those in southern UK seem to want to stay as the United Kingdom, but as you branch off further and further north, further and further west, and even further south, you start to have these branches that seem to believe that they should be different countries, they should be different unions. And even though we should continue trade between those unions, it's less important that you are defined by your nationality.
Wow. I don't live there, so I don't necessarily know all of the divisions that take place. I do know there were divisions from the standpoint of Ireland, and there's a vicious sound in the background that's killing the.
Sorry, that seems to be road construction.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
Good walk and a half.
No worries. I'm amazed by this. So what are they going to do? I've been paying attention to the media that's in the UK, but I don't necessarily know what regular people are saying about Brexit and their regular concerns. What is the thing on the street that people are talking about that bugs them, that concerns them? What is the zeitgeist that's taking place right now, just from the standpoint of the typical Brit?
Well, now in 2019, we've had more of a shift we really wanted to be a government by, for, and of the people.
Yeah.
And we really tried to take the time to properly listen to each and individual person, each individual group, each individual union. And luckily, a lot of the, shall we say, false pretenses that Brexit was brought around upon, such as the money birds and the magic money tree, and all the lies that the Tories sort of threw out and rode around on the bus with, that we did so much to Brussels. It's starting to all kind of fall apart there. And they were saying if we had actually come to them with some kind of legitimate reason for leaving the EU, it would have been a vote made in good confidence. But largely the problem was that there were all these false pretenses, this false narrative that they just happened to bring upon to the people. And the people in large part either believed that, or they were tired of the infighting of both the Conservatives, who seemed split on whether to stay or whether to leave, and my own party, who seemed to want to decapitate me, despite me winning not only the first largest majority election in Labour leadership history, but the second and third now. Mm-hmm. So despite them attempting to dethrone me off the leadership position in the party, and the sort of half and half Tory group that kept on pushing around. I mean, Nigel Farage was so much in support of Brexit that he just happened to move to America once it passed. So ultimately, there were false pretenses and starting to finally sort of fall off, and they're really having legitimate questions of, will the EU continue to function as a governing body, or will the austerity measures continue to separate smaller and smaller groups? I mean, Greece has already gone, as is Italy. They've both left the EU, and it's starting to look on a very shaky ground at that.
Italy also.
Yes. Both of them, after Berlusconi happened to get his, fourth or fifth term by now.
Yeah, I know, right?
They just decided to leave. On the bright side, the Five Ring Party had a very good showing, but unfortunately, because Berlusconi controls the media, he was able to very much twist the narrative towards his own party, much like in the States you're going through right now, where the media will continue to pop up these horrible warmongers as living saints of the Democratic Party. And ultimately, it's a very similar aesthetic of, will the EU crumble in upon itself? I mean, ultimately, the euro will lead to disaster. It's just a question of when and how much austerity each country can take before they're out of there.
Before it collapses.
And suddenly, it starts to collapse upon itself.
Let me ask you this.
Only two have left.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
No. I'm sorry. And interrupt. Sometimes I can't tell the space in the words where the person stops. I'm sorry. Finish.
No. But I was pretty close to that. But it very much is the question of who will lead next, how much of a player will they be in the EU's market, and whether that will be sort of the last straw. And the question is, do you jump ship earlier, or do you wait till later, or... I mean, Germany has nothing to worry about, so they're going to stay in their position all the way until the bitter end.
Well, right, because he's not the one who's essentially making, it's Theresa May that has to prove that the Brexit thing is, that's on her. It's not on Corbyn, unless the government implodes. There's one last question. I've noticed Soros. Soros has started putting money into having a second Leave campaign, in addition to having like people like Tony Blair. What's the other guy? It starts with an A. Adam. I can't think of his name. But he was one of Tony Blair minions, who was help responsible for the war. He's coming out with a memoir or something like that, where he's talking about he wanted to commit suicide at one point. Fuck him. My question to this has to do with whether or not there's any legs behind this. Do you think they'll be able to pull this off and having a second referendum? And what has been, I guess you could say, the push in Britain, if there's been a push in Britain at all for this kind of referendum or a second one?
There was some support for it, but ultimately it really did kind of collapse. Not only has Tony Blair not aged well, both physically and in the semblance that his policy and his warmongering has really come back to bite him. The Iraq War is even more unpopular here as it is in the U.S.
States,
and memories of that have not gone away. So largely, he did get trounced, shall we say, in that referendum, and Soros does not have a favorable opinion here either. And even though people wanted it, once there were actual legitimate claims, and once that false pretenses wore off, eventually we did get to the point where the citizenry was not going to be fooled again. Very similar, once again, to how in 2016 in America, they realized that they had been fooled once by the sort of charlatan progressive who turns into a corporatist upon election. So ultimately, we had to deal with the same exact problem where people had been fooled once, and they decided that this time they were actually going to stand the ground and deal with the decision they had made and properly work it out, because ultimately it is a responsibility at this point. We did have the election that was poorly managed, but we also had to deal with the ramifications of that.
Yeah, Brexit means Brexit.
We were tricked into doing something dumb in college does not mean you get off scot-free from having to deal with the repercussions of waking up hungover.
Yeah. Who you telling?
Who you telling? Because you were tricked into it.
No, I feel you. I totally feel you. I think it would be a massive disservice if, you have a referendum, you have this large election all across the country, like democracy on steroids, and then they come back and say, you know what, we didn't like the result, so we're going to have a second referendum. That just would be brutal, man. Jesus Christ, yeah.
Right. And although I wish at the very beginning they'd come with actual legitimate reasons for perhaps leaving the EU as a consequence of that, but really going around with false pretenses meant there was no hope of ever reversing that decision or ever really proceeding with Brexit as easily as they had produced it. All their sort of notions of, we'll just make this a quick, hard Brexit, and then the weird stuff with the red, white, and blue Brexit, which also made no sense, eventually would lead to a disaster, because there wasn't really going to be an easy way to deal with this, especially when Theresa kept on running away from every single one of her negotiations. She would rather run away and talk on TV than she would actually focus on Brexit negotiations, which, may I remind you, was her job.
Yeah, that's why she was hired. And that's literally why she became prime minister, because Cameron lost and failed and just left and put her in the job to do the Brexit. Yeah, you're right. You're so right.
Yep.
Man. Yep. Thanks, man. I appreciate you calling in, man.
Thank you so much.
I am fascinated by British politics. Like, I am, and maybe it's because I think part of it is a little bit more honest than American politics, if that makes sense. I know maybe not from the British perspective, but if you see politics in America, you would understand what I mean when I say they're a little bit more honest than what takes place in Britain.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what takes place in Britain is a little bit more honest than what takes place here in the States.
At the very least, we just opinions, and we don't really shy off and talk about esteemed colleagues, because, to be honest, no one wants to ever say that about Ted Cruz. He is no one's esteemed colleague, and he will never be esteemed from the moment he was born to the moment he dies. So we are brutally honest about the quality of our politicians and whether they are actually worth respecting, worth supporting, or just complete garbage that needs to be routed out as fast as possible. There's no sort of flying away from problems. So.
Well, not just that, your main leader at the very least gets questioned. I don't think Donald Trump would have ever been able to become prime minister getting questioned in a way that, the prime minister questions and everything else. He would get trounced. He would get utterly trounced.
Oh, yes. And he would probably even get trounced by one of our joke candidates, like Howling Lord Hope of the Monterey Looney Party or Lord Buckethead, would easily have trounced any chance that Trump would have any of our elections.
And the sad part about it is, you're probably right. Like, he became president of the United States. He beat a reality show host beats Hillary Clinton because the public is completely against this idea of a status quo candidate. And yeah, man, I'm gonna leave it at this. Dude, I appreciate you calling in, man. Thank you very much.
Oh, pleasure. Take care, and I hope to see you in 2019 when I'm Prime Minister.
Hell yeah. If you invite me, I will show up with bells on.
Have a good night, Jamal.
You too. Have a good night, man. All right, guys. That is going to be the last call. This was a long one. I hope it was interesting to some people. Let's see. I guess my audience has devolved into a fight. The next PM of the UK, everyone exclusively on the progressive soapbox. I know, right? Jeremy Corbyn showed up on the progressive soapbox. Yeah. Cheerio, mate. Cheerio. When I was in I think we were in France. My wife speaks a little bit of French. I don't speak any French, so I can't watch French politics because I don't speak it unless it's translated. And I walked by some guy and I was like, bonjour. And the guy was like, bonjour. He just let it rip. I thought it was the funniest shit on the planet. I don't know why I thought it was all that funny. You're Gordon DeMac. Oh, that was Gordon DeMac. I didn't realize it was Gordon. Fucking A. I didn't realize it was Gordon. Mark Pullman. Dude, Gordon, we're gonna have to do an Honest Tom thing. I don't know if you remember. Winky called in one day, and Winky was like, "I want to do Honest Tom. and Honest Tom Perez," and that shit was hilarious. That shit was absolutely hilarious. He was in the chat. I didn't realize he was in the chat. Awesome show, Jamal, and thanks for letting me call. Of course, dude. I like it when people call in. Gordon DeMac, I sent you an email, Jamal. I will check that email out, Gordon. Absolutely. Guys, Gordon has a show of its own. So please check out Gordon DeMac's show. It's something like this, but from it's kind of like British politics, if that makes sense. Yeah, something like this, but British. If that makes sense. So long, suckers. I got Dairy Queen. Cheers, Peter. Go for your values. I know. Because Tom Perez is always screaming for his values. Let's see. Sir Bikes a lot. Abby doesn't work for Telesure. She's an independent journalist that Telesure pays. That's my bad. I'm sorry. I thought it was Telesure. That's my bad. Hang up on a caller. You should host a debate on Venezuela with two people from there, but not triggered caller. Caller is loud, dumb, and annoying. Aww. Jamal for the win in this one. Thank you, Wesley. I appreciate it. I try to hold my own. It's my show. Please let me call before you leave. Opinion on us for Korea peace. No parents. What? Yes, no parents. No, I want peace. If you ever come to New York, can I light up one? Fuck yes, you can light one up. Peter's version 1. If you ever come to New York, can I light up one? Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Always. I don't care where I am. If you're like, yo, except if I'm abroad. If I'm abroad, I don't necessarily trust it. I don't necessarily want to get put into a foreign prison. I'm always freaked out by that. But if we're in New York, if we're anywhere, you're like, yo, man, I just want to, take a bonk it. Hell yeah, I'm game. In fact, I don't tolerate alcohol well, so it's like I have to smoke my liquor anyway. Opinion on us, Korea peace. I actually want Korean peace. Look, Donald Trump is going to Singapore to meet Kim Jong-un. That's a good thing. Whatever you want to think of Donald Trump, and I've said bad things about Donald Trump over the course of this show. I mean, not this, but you know what I mean, in general. But that's besides the point. There are real world consequences to what's taking place now. It is possible. There's been a war that has been going on for the most part for the last 50, 60 years. Most Americans don't remember that war. I guarantee you that the North Koreans do. We killed a fifth of their population in that war. We dropped so many bombs that at a certain point we just started dropping bombs on places where we already dropped bombs. It's hard to get across how much we've obliterated that country. In the pursuit of that, I think if I'm not mistaken, we killed like 1 million Chinese. America at this point was so, you can call it, they were so feeling themselves to such an extent. I think it was MacArthur made the promise saying that there is no way that China is going to get involved in this conflict. And he was certain about it up until the moment that China got involved into the conflict and pushed America back to the demarcation point, the demilitarized zone. Where it stands and where it's been that way for the past 50, 60 years. I don't like Donald Trump. Of all the presidents that I would have thought might have even gotten to the point of having some level of peace in North Korea, it would not have been Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump enough of an attention whore to try to grasp this? Yes. Do I have an expectation of Donald Trump making some kind of deal to get rid of nuclear weapons and everything else? No, I don't. Any deal that's made has to be fair. Otherwise, you're not going to get a deal. Nations are going to break their agreements if those agreements don't fall in line with the nation's interests. It's just being a nation. But if you are fair to them, then maybe. And you seem to have a political will from the standpoint of North Korea in regards to the things that they did in order to make this deal take place, even with Donald Trump even with Jesus Christ, it's getting late. Even with Bolton talking about the Gaddafi method, it's essentially getting the person to give up their nuclear weapons and then sodomize them with a machete. I don't necessarily think it requires sodomizing with a machete, but that is what took place in the Gaddafi case. How will you say that? Think about that. It's hard to... What is it like when you have a cold? What is it like when you stump your toe? What is it like when you've had surgery where a doctor cuts you open and you wake up immediately after anesthesia in a shit ton of pain, kind of not realizing what the fuck is taking place? Magnify that by 1,000. A bunch of brutes grab you by your throat, choke the shit out of you with a rope, and then essentially... It's not a fun day. And it's hard to process what the person was going through when that took place. This is not sympathy for the devil per se. This is more so about this thing of, if we're trying to make a deal, maybe those are conversations that you don't have on Fox News. Just saying. But nevertheless, they were still willing to go through with it, even after James Bolton says that. Is it James Bolton? Michael Bolton? James Bolton? I'm getting tired and fatiguing. My powers are fading on me. My point is, they seem to be willing to go through with the deal. They seem to want to go through with the deal. And South Korea seems to be primed also. Does this mean reconciliation between the two? Who knows? I have no idea. But is the hate that Donald Trump is getting for this from media and from Democrats warranted? It is not. It is not. There are larger things at work. There is a political framework to which we exist under. This is a legal fiction of sorts. You have all of these rules and regulations and everything else. We exist within a body of laws and so forth. It is what it is. This is how we function. This is how we operate. Within that framework, you have this kind of economic system. Fair enough. This is how we operate. I think it's pretty egregious, but nevertheless, it's how we operate. Somebody getting killed goes beyond the framework. That goes into the thing of the person themselves leaving this physical matter reality space, what we consider to be reality. That person is no longer a part of that process, and leaving that process in a heinous, painful, unterrific way. That's real world. If we get hit by an asteroid, that's real world. It supersedes all of this other stuff that we've created from the standpoint of legal fiction and everything else. If you go out and stump your toe, that's real world. That pain directly affects you. It ties you directly into your physical matter reality environment in a way that nothing else digs in you. What's taking place here is trying to prevent something that's catastrophic. There is no military solution to North Korea. None. Any attack on North Korea is immediately going to be an attack on Japan or South Korea. Your only option to this is either not talking or talking to them. If you're not talking to them, you're inching closer and closer to some kind of conflict between those two things. If North Korea fires off a missile, assume for the moment that the missile is not intentionally trying to hit anything in particular, but they're firing off a missile just because they're pissed off at something that the United States did. many times the missiles that they fire off fuck up and fall into the sea. Imagine for the moment if it doesn't fuck up and fall into the sea, but instead it hits Japan. What if it hit South Korea? What if it was a mistake? Would it matter that it was a mistake? Kim Jong-un firing off these rockets. I may understand why he's doing it from the standpoint of not necessarily liking the military exercising and everything else. But let's be honest, there's remarkably dangerous in regards to the implications and repercussions if there is a fuck up and something happens. The peace process, and that's what it is, a process, is preferable to me among the other options that are on the table. If it's Donald Trump, fair enough. I don't care. As long as you can get closer and closer to some level of peace, I don't care. Don't lie to him. Don't fuck him over. Don't do anything that's untoward, and be fair in your process, in your negotiations. Beyond that, good luck. I didn't choose him to be my president, but he is my president nonetheless in these negotiations, and so I wish him all the best. I don't have to like him to wish him the best. Peter version 1, oh fucking God is what you think. What? Oh fucking God is what you think. I don't know what that means. Balthazar 228. We were Kim Jong underestimating our damage on the peninsula. We carried out genocide and then ignored the region for decades. We done fucked up. I'm going to leave it on that, Balthazar, because I think that sums it up beautifully. I think it sums it up beautifully. Laid back manner. Jamal, would you like an intro into the show? I'd like to make one for you if you want. Maybe. I am bad at sitting and producing my videos, if that makes sense. I tend to like to do them and push them. I hate doing all the ancillary things associated with doing a show. Don't like putting out the tweets. Don't like doing any of the stuff. I just like doing videos. I like talking to my audience. In any job that you do, you always have this other stuff that you're associated with that you don't have a choice. But my wife and I, in our travels, we plan on having a travel blog. At least she does. And she wants to be able to do one show a week. That show will be highly processed because she's going to be the one that's supposedly processing it. And in that capacity, yes. So please send me an email. Jay Scott, wow, Trump is Little Rockin' Man right now. Trump is Little Rockin' Man. Yeah, he is with Oh, stop it, Jay. Stop it. He's with Little Rockin' Man right now. Live stream North Korea Talks. That's on now? Alright, I'm going to have to check that out. Alright, guys. This show has gone for nearly 3 hours. We've had fights. We've had laughs. We've had debates. We've had trying to come to some resolution. And all of this started talking about Britain. Layback Manor is at the bottom of my video. It's at the bottom here of this. No, it's at the bottom. So, I'm going to end this here. I thank all of you for coming. This was an interesting video to say the least. Mark Panoki, 3 hours, also known as Not Long Enough. What the hell ever, Mark? It is a draining experience to fight with somebody on a subject like that. Because for me, it's they're killing people. And all of this other stuff is, is like, I need to throw up glitter for this, and I need to throw up this. And it's like, but you've just agreed with me that we've had a special relationship. And in agreeing with me we had a special relationship, why are you talking about all these other people to which we don't have that special relationship? I mean, come on, let's be honest. The apologist was crazy. Harlan said, Clay, you presented your case well. Thank you, I try. It is my show. I don't want to look bad on my own show. So, or better. It's 3 a.m. I'm knackered. Glad I don't have to get up early. Nikki M. Well, where are you? I don't know where you are, Nikki. Peter Virgin 1, that guy was alone. He wasn't alone. He's a Zionist. Did HA call in? No, HA didn't call in. HA didn't call in. Look, man, you must understand how I look at this. I'm always conflicted about this stuff. A guy grows up in a society. He mugs somebody, steals their wallet. There's $10 in the wallet. And the judge throws the book at him. And the judge, very rarely, if they take into account of saying, if this person was in a different society with different environmental circumstances, would this person have committed this crime? And if that answer is yes, isn't the better solution to try to figure out what's causing the issue in the first place, as opposed to just throwing a person in a cage? That's never really asked in our justice system. Every so often they may give, these are other environmental factors and everything else, but those things don't really weigh heavily from the standpoint of putting the state on trial when somebody commits a crime. It's always the individual, as if the individual is solely responsible for the thing that the individual did. They're not. People aren't necessarily robots. People don't necessarily have this complete and utter free will. If I am talking to somebody who's a right-winger in Israel, if he was born and raised in that particular culture, if he has a bias specific to that culture, for that matter, if I was talking to somebody who was in white racist 1950s America, what would the perspective of the person who was white racist in 1950s America be? I would imagine you can get those people like, I forget the guy HA had the argument with, that white supremacist. They have a power structure that they've installed into their heads that tells them that the murder, the killing, the injuring, that those things are perfectly okay because other people somewhere around the globe does it. That's nonsense. My focus is on American topics. That means my focus is going to be on things that we do abroad and the relationships that we have abroad. I tend to focus on Britain because I think Britain is interesting, and I focus on some of the conflicts that we have around the globe. That's my focus. I don't focus on Nicaragua because I know dick about Nicaragua. I don't focus on Venezuela because I know dick about Venezuela. I focus on the things that I know. It has nothing to do with a particular bias for a particular thing or against a particular thing. I don't like murder or crime or none of that stuff in any of these places. But if you're asking me, where are billions of dollars of the taxpayer money going? Billions of dollars are going to Israel. If you're asking me, does Israel have nuclear weapons at our behest? Yes. While at the same token, trying to tell other people that they can't have those weapons around the globe. The point is that their thing is, and their interest is domination, not fairness. So the argument that they're bringing up, talking about, what about this place, what about that place, is nonsense. That stuff is just stuff that they're throwing up as flack because they don't want to deal with the fact that they're murdering people and they're holding people in an open air goddamn ghetto. So, yeah, just saying. I'm going to end this here. A dingo ate my baby. That's right, Japan is 12 hours different than Eastern Time. Brain fart, the new UK was only 6 hours different. Yeah, you're just 6 hours away. Could you imagine, Maul, after 24 hours of this? Won't end well. I will still be lucid and aware. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Alright, guys, I'm going to end it here. If you guys enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. Of course, you guys can always support the Patreon. And I want to thank everybody who was here for this. Baltazar, Peter Version 1, Wesley Walker, Elephants on Cokes or Bikes a Lot. Guys, thank you all very much. I really do appreciate it. You all have a good night. And we